From the silence of deep space, the Earth appears. A fragile sphere, painted in blue and green, wrapped in the thin silver veil of its atmosphere. It floats against an endless black ocean of stars, solitary, radiant, whole. From here, it seems unchanging, a timeless world. But as the eye draws closer, illusions begin to fade. Coastlines start to shimmer, edges blur, and the continents shift before us. In one moment, the map appears familiar. In the next, it rearranges itself, its shapes bending and breaking apart like shards of drifting glass. Africa presses against South America. India sails northward, colliding with Asia. Australia pulls away into the Pacific. The Earth, it seems, is not still. It is not fixed. It is alive. If we could watch millions of years compressed into seconds, the transformation would be astonishing. Mountains would rise like sudden teeth from the land, only to crumble away into dust. Deserts would bloom into forests, then wither again into sand. Oceans would expand, split apart, and vanish, while entire continents would appear, fracture, and sink into silence. This is the restless nature of our planet. To human eyes, bound to the short scale of years, continents seem eternal. The ground beneath our feet feels like the one unshakable certainty. But on the time scale of the Earth, permanence is an illusion. The science of plate tectonics explains this truth. The crust of the Earth is not a single shell, but a mosaic of massive slabs, drifting slowly on a sea of molten rock beneath. They move only centimeters a year, yet across millions of years, their journeys reshape the face of the planet. Continents drift thousands of kilometers. Oceans open and close. Lands once joined are torn apart, their pieces carried across the globe. To understand this is to realize something profound. Continents themselves can disappear. They can be broken, swallowed by the sea, or reduced to scattered fragments hidden beneath the waves. But long before geologists uncovered these truths, humanity already suspected that the Earth had missing pieces. Ancient stories across cultures spoke of drowned kingdoms, of islands swallowed whole, of lands that once were but are no more. They were remembered in myth, in sacred tales, in whispered warnings passed from one generation to the next. Perhaps some were allegories, stories invented to explain suffering or pride. Yet others may have been rooted in memory echoes of real places that slipped beneath rising seas. Consider the oceans themselves. They cover more than 70% of our world, yet remain largely unexplored. Beneath their shifting surface lie mountain ranges taller than the Alps, canyons deeper than any on land, and plains the size of continents. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about these submerged realms. What lies hidden there? Lost landscapes where rivers once flowed and forests once spread. Valleys where animals roamed freely. Coastlines where people lived, built, and dreamed. Beneath the waves may sleep entire regions of the Earth's history, erased from the maps we know. During the last ice age, sea levels were over 100 meters lower than today. Vast areas of land stretched outward from every coast. Great plains connected islands, forming bridges where now there is water. To the people who lived in those times, the Earth must have seemed vast and open, filled with territories that no longer exist. And then, as the glaciers melted, the seas rose. Slowly, inexorably, they advanced inland, consuming forests and hunting grounds, swallowing valleys and rivers, erasing villages and campsites. To those who watched, it must have seemed as if the world itself was dissolving. Did they pass down their memories of these drowned lands? In many cultures, they did. In Mesopotamia, stories of a deluge that covered the earth. In India, the tale of a great flood in which the sage Manu was guided to safety. Among Pacific Islanders, myths of islands swallowed by the ocean. In the Americas, tales of ancient cities beneath the waves. Different voices, different lands. Yet the same theme repeats. Once there was land. Now there is only sea. Modern science has uncovered evidence that some of these stories may be true. Archaeologists have discovered ancient tools scattered along drowned coastlines. Geologists have found the remnants of microcontinents, fragments of lost land beneath the Indian and Pacific Oceans. And oceanographers continue to map plateaus, ridges, and valleys that reveal a hidden geography beneath the waves. One example is Zealandia, a nearly submerged continent the size of Australia, now lying beneath the Pacific Ocean. Another is Mauritius, a drowned fragment beneath the Indian Ocean, discovered only a decade ago by crystals of ancient rock buried in island sands. These are not myths, but facts, proof that continents can vanish almost completely from view. And yet, beyond the known, the imagination stretches further. For alongside these scientific discoveries live the great legends Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, Humari Kandam, stories of vast continents lost to time. Some scholars dismiss them as fantasy. Others see them as distorted memories of real catastrophes, filtered through myth. Whether real or imagined, these lost lands serve a deeper purpose. They remind us that even what seems permanent is fragile, that the Earth we know is only one version of itself, one chapter in a far older story. As the vision pulls back again, Earth glows against the darkness of the cosmos. Its continents, for now, appear still and familiar. But beneath the surface, another atlas lies hidden, an atlas of fragments and ghosts, of lands erased by time, and of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And so the question remains, how many worlds have we lost? How many pieces of Earth's history have slipped beneath the waves, taking with them the stories of those who once called them home? This is the beginning of our journey, a journey into the continents that vanished from history. Picture the Earth not as it is now, but as it once was, an ancient sphere where the familiar outlines of our continents do not exist. No Africa, no Asia, no Americas separated by oceans. Instead, all the lands of the world are pressed together, joined into one colossal mass, a supercontinent. This was Pangaea. 250 million years ago, it stretched from pole to pole, a single giant continent surrounded by an endless world ocean. Forests and deserts sprawled across its vast interior. Strange reptiles walked its plains. Winds carried moisture unevenly, drenching some lands while leaving others barren and lifeless. On the edges of Pangaea, waves crashed against a single continuous coastline, the longest shoreline the world has ever known. The story of Pangaea is the story of Earth's restless crust. To understand it, we must begin with the science of plate tectonics, the great unifying theory of modern geology. Beneath our feet, the ground may feel solid, immovable. Yet it is only the outermost layer of the planet, the lithosphere, a shell of rigid rock broken into massive slabs known as tectonic plates. These plates float atop the softer, flowing mantle beneath. Heat from the Earth's core rises upward, setting currents in motion, pushing and pulling the plates like rafts on a slow-moving sea. Their movement is imperceptible to us, barely a few centimeters each year. But stretched across deep time, it is enough to rearrange the entire face of the Earth. Mountains are lifted where plates collide. Trenches form where one plate dives beneath another. Oceans are born, grow, and eventually close again. Continents drift apart, meet, and sometimes fuse. This constant cycle is called the supercontinent cycle. According to geology, Earth has seen not one, but several supercontinents. Before Pangaea, there was Rodinia, nearly 1 billion years ago. Before Rodinia, there was Columbia, sometimes called Nuna. And before even that, earlier continental masses, whose names are known only to science. Each one formed, broke apart, and gave birth to the next. Pangaea, however, is the most famous, partly because it is the most recent, and because it left the clearest mark on the continents we see today. Imagine rewinding time. The Atlantic Ocean closes. shrinking back until the Americas collide with Africa and Europe. India sails southward again, detaching from Asia. Australia drifts back toward Antarctica. Piece by piece, the puzzle locks together until the continents reunite, forming the single giant landmass that once was. When scientists first proposed this idea, it was met with skepticism. In 1912, German meteorologist Alfred Wegener put forward the theory of continental drift. He noticed that the coastlines of South America and Africa seemed to fit together like pieces of a puzzle. He also pointed out similarities in fossils and rock formations across continents, now separated by oceans. His conclusion: the continents must once have been joined. But in Wegener's time, he could not explain how continents could move. Critics dismissed his theory as impossible. It wasn't until the mid-20th century, after discoveries in seafloor spreading, mid-ocean ridges, and the global mapping of earthquake zones, that the mechanism became clear. The plates themselves were moving, carried by mantle convection. Wegener's continental drift was reborn as the plate tectonics revolution, and suddenly, Earth's past made sense. From this new perspective, Pangaea was not just a theory, but a geological reality. Evidence is written in the rocks themselves. Fossilized plants and animals appear on opposite sides of the ocean, as though separated by no more than a river. Mountain chains, like the Appalachians in North America, align perfectly with ranges in Scotland and Norway. Layers of sandstone, coal, and glacial deposits line up across continents that today lie thousands of kilometers apart. Around 200 million years ago, Pangaea began to crack. At first, great rift valleys opened, filling with water and widening into seas. Over time, these seas grew larger, until they became the great oceans we know today. The Atlantic was born, splitting the Americas from Europe and Africa. Later, India tore itself free and embarked on its long journey northward, colliding with Asia to raise the Himalayas. Antarctica drifted southward to its icy fate. Australia broke away, setting its course into the Pacific. The process continues even now. Africa is slowly rifting apart along the East African Rift Valley. The Red Sea is widening. In millions of years to come, the continents will again form a new configuration, perhaps another supercontinent of future Pangaea waiting to be born. Mainstream science, then, gives us a sweeping, majestic story. Continents are not fixed, but wanderers across geological time. Lands appear, fracture, and vanish, not by sudden catastrophe, but by the slow, unstoppable rhythm of the Earth itself. This narrative explains the continents we know. It accounts for the land masses that once were, and the oceans that now divide them. But while it offers answers, it also leaves space for mystery. For if continents can form and vanish over millions of years, what of those that disappear more suddenly? What of the lands remembered not in rocks, but in human memory lands, swallowed by rising seas in the blink of an eye compared to geological time? And what of the ocean floor, where fragments of hidden continents are only now being discovered, Zealandia, Mauritius, and others? Are they merely remnants of the supercontinent cycle, or hints of stories we have yet to understand? Pangaea is the scientific foundation, the map against which all mysteries must be measured. It grounds us in the slow dance of plates and time. Yet it also opens the door to speculation. Because if continents can vanish on the scale of millions of years, perhaps other continents could have vanished within the span of human history. The Earth's story, as told by geology, is vast, elegant, and humbling. But it may not be complete. In the half-light of dawn, the Indian Ocean stretches outward like a mirror of silence. Its surface hides trenches and plateaus, chains of islands, and reefs where ancient volcanoes once stood. But in the 19th century, some believed it hid something more, a missing continent. A vast landmass, now drowned, that once connected Madagascar, India, and Southeast Asia. This imagined land would come to be called Lemuria. The story begins not with myth, but with science at least, the science of its time. In the mid-1800s, European naturalists were puzzled by a curious distribution of life. Fossils of lemurs, those wide-eyed primates of Madagascar, appeared not only on that island, but in parts of India as well. Yet these regions were separated by thousands of kilometers of open sea. How could such creatures have crossed such vast oceans? Ships and airplanes were far in the future. Ocean currents seemed insurmountable. For scientists of the era, one answer suggested itself. The animals must not have crossed the seas at all. Instead, perhaps the lands themselves had once been joined and only later torn apart. Enter Philip Sclater, a zoologist from England. In 1864, he published an influential paper on the mammals of Madagascar. In it, he coined a name for the hypothetical vanished land that, in his view, once stretched between Madagascar and India, Lemuria, after the lemurs themselves. Sclater imagined a great landmass, now sunken beneath the Indian Ocean, whose fragments remained as Madagascar, India, and other scattered islands. For him, Lemuria was a natural bridge, a lost continent explaining the otherwise inexplicable distribution of species. Today, we know the true explanation lies in plate tectonics, the slow drift of India northward after breaking away from Madagascar around 88 million years ago. But in the 19th century, the science of drifting continents had not yet been accepted. The concept of Lemuria seemed elegant, even obvious. Soon, however, Lemuria slipped beyond the bounds of zoology. It was adopted by others, who wove it into something more than a scientific hypothesis. It became a stage for human imagination. Theosophists, members of a mystical movement that blended philosophy, religion, and esotericism, embraced the idea. To them, Lemuria was not just a land of animals, but a cradle of humanity itself. Helene Blavatsky, one of the movement's founders, described it as home to a now lost root race of people who had lived ages before recorded history. According to her writings, these beings were giants, some with spiritual powers, others with strange, ethereal forms. Such stories gave Lemuria a new life. It became a mystical counterpart to Atlantis, occupying the Indian and Pacific Oceans, a lost realm where early civilizations might have flourished before being swallowed by cataclysm. The name began to appear in novels, spiritual texts, and speculative writings. Some imagined Lemuria as a tropical paradise, others as a land destroyed by volcanic fire. In certain versions, its people escaped the disaster, seeding ancient knowledge into Egypt, India, or the Americas. Oddly enough, these esoteric visions helped cement Lemuria in popular imagination long after science had moved on. As plate tectonics gained ground in the 20th century, the idea of a missing continent between Madagascar and India was abandoned by mainstream geology. Yet outside science, the myth endured. And even today, whispers of Lemuria surface in unexpected places. In parts of southern India and Sri Lanka, local legends speak of Kumari Kandam, a drowned land south of the Tamil coast, said to have been the seat of a great civilization. Scholars debate whether this tradition influenced or was later influenced by the Western idea of Lemuria. Meanwhile, in Hawaii and California, some New Age communities continue to speak of Lemuria as a place of ancient wisdom, whose survivors supposedly left behind spiritual teachings for humanity's awakening. To them, the continent was never merely land, but a higher realm, lost in the material sense, but alive in the collective memory. Behind the myth, however, there remains a subtle truth. While Lemuria, as Sclater imagined it, does not exist, fragments of lost continents do lie hidden beneath the seas. In recent decades, geologists have uncovered the remains of Mauritius, a microcontinent beneath the waters near Mauritius. Zircon crystals, billions of years old, were found on its beaches, out of place among the younger volcanic rocks. Similar discoveries reveal submerged plateaus and continental fragments scattered across the Indian Ocean floor. None of these are Lemuria in the mystical sense. They are remnants of Gondwana, broken off and buried as the plates shifted. But their existence reminds us that the Earth does erase continents, that land can indeed vanish into the sea. It is here that science and myth overlap. Lemuria, though it never was, emerged from a genuine puzzle: how to explain the scattered traces of life across the Indian Ocean world. And while the solution science now gives is different, the instinct behind Lemuria, the sense that something lies missing, was not entirely wrong. In this way, Lemuria is both false and true. False in the details, true in the feeling that our planet is unfinished, that parts of its story remain submerged. The Indian Ocean, calm at its surface, still holds mysteries. Beneath its waves lie volcanic ridges, drowned islands, and continental shards. To look upon it is to imagine what else might have been. Did ancient peoples standing on its shores once tell stories of lands now lost beyond the horizon? Did sailors dream of civilizations hidden below the waves? Lemuria may have begun as a footnote in zoology, but it has become something larger, a mirror for our desire to fill the gaps in history, to explain the unknown, not with silence, but with story. It reminds us that sometimes, in the spaces where science has not yet spoken, imagination rushes in to build continents of its own. And so as the sun sets across the vast Indian Ocean, its waters shimmering like a sheet of molten gold, one might wonder, does the ocean hide only what geology describes, or does it also carry the weight of forgotten dreams? The Pacific Ocean is so vast that it defies imagination. Its waters stretch across nearly half the planet, swallowing horizons, holding islands like scattered jewels adrift in endless blue. Beneath its waves lie trenches deeper than mountains are tall, volcanic ridges and seamounts, reminders of a restless Earth still shaping itself. But for more than a century, some believed the Pacific once held more than water and scattered islands. They believed it had concealed an entire continent, one whose name was whispered with wonder: Mu. The tale of Mu begins with a man named Augustus Le Plongeon, a 19th century photographer and amateur archaeologist. In the 1870s, Le Plongeon explored the ruins of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, particularly the great Maya city of Chichen Itza. Through his own translations, later shown to be highly inaccurate, he became convinced that the Maya were not only the heirs of a great civilization, but the descendants of a much older world, a lost continent across the ocean. He called this vanished land Mu. According to Le Plongeon's vision, Mu was the cradle of civilization itself. Its people, he argued, had spread across the globe, teaching the arts of architecture and wisdom to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and India. In his eyes, the Maya were the last keepers of this ancient knowledge, a fragment of a forgotten world. The idea might have remained obscure had it not been expanded by others. In the early 20th century, British occult writer James Churchward took up the tale. Claiming access to secret records inscribed on ancient tablets in India, he described Mu as a vast continent in the Pacific, home to an advanced civilization numbering in the millions. Churchward wrote of great temples, gardens, and technologies lost to time. He imagined Mu as a land of spiritual wisdom, where a chosen people lived in harmony before a catastrophic event: earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods swallowed their homeland beneath the waves. According to him, traces of Mu survived in Polynesian myths, in the ruins of Easter Island, and in the shared symbols of ancient cultures. His books, filled with maps and bold assertions, captivated readers at a time when archaeology was still revealing new wonders in Egypt and Mesopotamia. To the public, the idea of a hidden continent seemed almost plausible, a missing piece that tied the scattered mysteries of the world into a single grand story. But the appeal of Mu was more than archaeological curiosity. It was tied, too, to the colonial imagination of the era. Western explorers, encountering the rich oral traditions of Polynesia, and the monumental stonework of islands like Rapa Nui often found themselves unable or unwilling to accept that these works were the achievements of the islanders themselves. Instead, they sought explanations in vanished continents and lost races, projecting mystery where none was needed. Thus Mu became more than a lost land. It became a myth that carried with it assumptions of the time. A belief that knowledge must have come from somewhere else, from a civilization erased yet superior. Science, however, did not support these grand claims. As geology advanced in the mid-20th century, the theory of plate tectonics revealed the true story of the Pacific. Beneath its waters, the seafloor was found to be young in geological terms, constantly renewed by volcanic ridges and subduction zones. No trace of a sunken continent the size of Mu could exist there. If a landmass had once stretched across the Pacific, science tells us it would have left behind fragments, fossils, and structures. None have been found. Still, Mu refused to disappear from human imagination. Even after Churchward's claims were dismissed, the myth seeped into popular culture. Novelists, spiritual writers, and adventurers continued to invoke its name. For some, Mu became a counterpart to Atlantis, a twin lost world on the far side of the earth. For others, it became a metaphor for humanity's forgotten past, a blank canvas on which to project hopes, fears, and the possibility of ancient wisdom. Oddly enough, fragments of truth may lie hidden within the myth. Across the Pacific, island cultures tell stories of lands that vanished beneath the sea. In Hawaii, chants speak of Kanaloa, a sunken land of the gods. In parts of Polynesia, legends recall islands swallowed by waves after earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. And we know, from modern science, that such events did happen. Sea levels rose dramatically after the last ice age, swallowing coastal plains and low-lying islands. Volcanoes erupted, reshaping entire archipelagos. Earthquakes shifted seabeds, creating tsunamis that swept away villages. These were not the cataclysmic destruction of a vast continent, but they were enough to seed myths of lost lands, handed down across generations. And so, within the story of Mu, a subtle pattern emerges. While the continent itself never existed, the human memory of drowned lands, of homes lost to the sea, is real. The Pacific has always been a place where land is both created and destroyed, where islands rise from the sea and eventually erode back into it. The myth of Mu, perhaps, is not a falsehood, but a magnification of this eternal cycle. Today, the Pacific still invites speculation. Its depths remain largely unmapped. Its trenches are among the least explored places on Earth. Somewhere down there lie seamounts the size of mountains, plateaus drowned millions of years ago, and ecosystems unknown to science. Nothing suggests a lost continent, but the mystery of the ocean leaves room for imagination. And imagination matters, because even when disproven, myths like Mu continue to shape the way humans see the world. They remind us of our longing for origins, for connections that span oceans, for stories that make sense of scattered fragments. As the sun sets over the Pacific, painting the horizon in bands of orange and gold, one can almost feel the weight of those stories in the air. A sailor, adrift in the immensity, might have looked out at the rolling swells and wondered, what lies beneath? Could there be more than water, more than islands, more than fish? Could there be another world, swallowed but not forgotten? Mu, the continent that wasn't, endures not because of its truth, but because of its resonance. It is a dream that refuses to sink. A phantom continent reminding us that sometimes the boundaries between science and myth are not walls, but shorelines shifting, eroding, and remade with every tide. And so the Pacific keeps its silence, holding no continents, only stories. Yet the stories themselves are a kind of land territories of the imagination, where Mu still rises above the waves, eternal in its absence. The waves of the Atlantic roll endlessly against the cliffs of Europe and the shores of Africa. For sailors, These waters once marked the edge of the known world, a horizon where imagination stretched further than maps. It is fitting, then, that the most famous story of a lost continent comes from these seas. Atlantis. The name alone carries weight, conjuring images of golden cities, marble columns rising from the waves, and a mighty people undone by their own pride. Yet the origins of this tale are quieter, born not in myth, but in philosophy, in the writings of Plato, more than 2,000 years ago. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato recounts a story told, he claims, by the statesman Solon, who had heard it from Egyptian priests. They spoke of an island beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the Strait of Gibraltar, larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. This land, Atlantis, was said to have harbored a powerful and wealthy civilization. Its kings commanded fleets that crossed oceans, its fields yielded abundance, and its temples shone with orichalcum, a mysterious metal brighter than bronze. But prosperity bred ambition. The Atlanteans sought to conquer, spreading their influence beyond their own shores. They marched upon Europe and Asia, until only Athens resisted their might. And then, as if by divine judgment, catastrophe struck. In a single day and night of misfortune, earthquakes and floods swallowed Atlantis, dragging it into the sea. This is the account that has haunted Western imagination for millennia. But what did Plato mean by it? For scholars, Atlantis has long been a puzzle. Some believe Plato intended it as pure allegory, a moral tale about the dangers of hubris, set against the backdrop of his ideal Athens. In this reading, Atlantis was never meant as history at all, but as a parable, an invented stage on which to dramatize the conflict between virtue and corruption. Yet others argue differently. They point out the detail in Plato's descriptions, the concentric canals of the capital, the measurements of temples, the lineage of kings. These specifics seem excessive for allegory alone. Was Plato preserving fragments of a story older than himself? Could Atlantis have been a memory, distorted but not wholly imagined? Speculation has swirled for centuries. In the Renaissance, explorers sought Atlantis in the New World, believing the Americas themselves might be its remnant. Later, some pointed to the Azores, volcanic islands mid-Atlantic, as possible fragments of a sunken land. In the 20th century, theories multiplied Atlantis in the Caribbean, Atlantis in Antarctica, Atlantis beneath the waters of the Mediterranean. Mainstream geology offers little support for such vast sunken continents. The Atlantic seafloor is well mapped, and no lost landmass of Atlantis' scale has been found. But the endurance of the myth suggests that something deeper resonates in it, perhaps not a literal continent, but a memory of disasters written in human experience. Consider the Thera eruption around 1600 BC. On the island now known as Santorini, a volcano exploded with such violence that it tore the island apart. Ash clouds darkened skies across the Aegean. Tidal waves swept coasts. The thriving Minoan civilization, with its fleets and palaces, suffered devastation. To later Greeks, fragments of this cataclysm may have filtered into legend, transformed into the story of Atlantis. Or consider rising seas at the end of the Ice Age, around 12,000 years ago, an age not far from the timeline Plato gives. Vast stretches of coastal plains vanished as glaciers melted. Entire homelands were lost. Myths of drowned worlds echo from cultures across the globe. Could Atlantis be one more version of this collective memory, shaped into narrative by Plato's pen? Oddly enough, certain details in Plato's account, an advanced seafaring people, sudden destruction, the sea swallowing their land align with these broader patterns of flood mythology. Perhaps Atlantis is not one lost place, but a symbolic fusion of many, condensed into a single story. Still, the allure of Atlantis lies in its possibility. For centuries, seekers have searched for ruins on the seafloor. Expeditions have scoured the coasts of Spain and Morocco, scanning for traces of concentric harbors. Others dive in the Bahamas, pointing to unusual stone formations as evidence of drowned walls. Each discovery is contested, debated, often debunked, yet the hope endures that one day, the waves will part to reveal Plato's city of legend. In the realm of the esoteric, Atlantis has grown into something larger than Plato's words. 19th and 20th century mystics described it as a cradle of advanced technology, a place where crystal energy powered machines, where souls learned lessons before reincarnating into our world. In these visions, Atlantis becomes less a continent and more a mythic memory, a lost golden age that mirrors humanity's yearning for origins. And perhaps that is why Atlantis endures more than Lemuria, more than Mu. It is not only a story of loss, but of warning. Prosperity undone by arrogance, knowledge drowned by pride, a great civilization erased in a single night. Whether historical or allegorical, the lesson is the same: that greatness carries the seeds of its own destruction, and that nature's power humbles even the mightiest. As the waves of the Atlantic crash against the shore, it is easy to imagine a city just beyond sight, its spires shimmering beneath the surface, its streets silent but for the rush of currents. No evidence confirms it, yet the image persists. Atlantis lives not in geology, but in the imagination, an idea too compelling to vanish, a question that refuses an answer. Plato gave us only fragments, but those fragments have grown into an entire continent of thought. Was it allegory? Was it memory? Or was it something in between, a myth seeded with truth, like a pearl forming around a grain of sand? What we know is this: the earth has drowned lands before, and it will again. The seas rise, the ground shifts, and cities are swallowed. Whether or not Atlantis existed as Plato described, the ocean is littered with ruins, reminders that permanence is an illusion, and that civilizations, like continents, can vanish. And so, the story of Atlantis flows on, like the tides themselves, endlessly retreating, endlessly returning. If you look at a modern map of Southeast Asia, the region appears as a scattering of islands: Sumatra, Java, Borneo, and the Philippines, surrounded by shallow seas. But shift the sea level back just 120 meters to where it stood during the last ice age, and the map transforms. Those seas drain away, and the islands merge into a vast, sprawling landmass. This was Sundaland, a continent-sized extension of Asia that once stretched from modern Indochina to the islands we know today. Where there is now water, there were plains and rivers, mountains and valleys. Sundaland was not a myth born of imagination. It was real, and it existed for tens of thousands of years. During the Ice Age, much of Earth's water was locked in colossal glaciers. Sea levels were lower, coastlines further out. What is now the South China Sea was once a wide interior plain, drained by rivers larger than the Mekong. Fishermen in Indonesia today sometimes dredge up bones of elephants and tigers, reminders that Sundaland was once a place where these creatures roamed freely. The landscape would have been extraordinary. Vast wetlands teemed with life. Tropical forests stretched unbroken. Herds of animals migrated across valleys that are now hidden beneath waves. And along these rivers and coasts, humans lived too. Archaeological evidence shows that Southeast Asia was home to some of the earliest modern humans outside Africa, with tools and fossils dating back over 70,000 years. The question that lingers is simple yet profound. If Sundaland was once dry land, then what happened when the sea rose? Around 20,000 years ago, the Ice Age began to retreat. Temperatures warmed, glaciers melted, and oceans swelled. Over millennia, the seas crept upward, inch by inch, drowning coasts, swallowing river valleys, erasing entire landscapes. By about 7,000 years ago, Sundaland as a continent was gone, its fertile plains and river deltas lost beneath the ocean. For the people who lived there, this would have been no gradual, unnoticed change. It was a catastrophe unfolding across generations. Villages would have been abandoned, sacred sites drowned, homelands remembered only in story. To the survivors, It must have felt like the world itself was dissolving, their gods punishing them, or the sea hungering for land. Some researchers believe this is the key to understanding the flood myths of Asia and beyond. Ancient stories from Indonesia speak of lands swallowed by water. Malay legends tell of great floods that reshaped the world. Even further afield, myths of deluges, like those of Mesopotamia, India, and the Bible, may echo the trauma of rising seas. Sundaland's drowning was not local. It was global, affecting coasts everywhere, but Sundaland's importance may go beyond myth. Some scholars suggest that this lost land could have been a cradle of early seafaring civilizations. The rivers that once cut across its plains would have supported rich agriculture. Its coasts would have been natural harbors. It was a crossroads between India, China, and Oceania, a place where ideas, trade, and migration may have flourished. One intriguing hypothesis, known as the Sundaland hypothesis, argues that this region was a center of early human innovation, a homeland from which populations spread outward after the floods. Genetic studies show deep connections between Southeast Asian peoples and distant Pacific Islanders. Could these migrations have begun when Sundaland drowned, forcing its people to take to the seas? We catch glimpses of this possibility in the archaeological record. On Borneo, caves preserve art tens of thousands of years old, some of the earliest known depictions of animals and hands. In Sulawesi, red ochre paintings stretch back more than 40,000 years. These are the works of people who lived within Sundaland's borders, who saw the land both in its glory and in its decline. And there are tantalizing signs beneath the waves. Off the coast of Malaysia, divers have found stone tools in submerged caves. In Indonesia, fishermen tell of structures glimpsed in shallow waters, though they are rarely studied. The seas around Sundaland are murky, their sediments hiding ruins, if any survive. Yet the possibility remains that one day, echoes of an Ice Age civilization may be uncovered there. Not all scholars agree, of course. Mainstream archaeology is cautious. The rising seas were real, the loss of Sundaland undeniable, but whether complex societies thrived there remains uncertain. Still, the scale of the land, its richness, and its disappearance leave space for speculation. Odd facts linger too. For example, the island of Java holds the fossil remains of Homo erectus, an ancestor of modern humans who lived there for nearly 1 million years. This means Sundaland was inhabited by different human species over vast stretches of time. Could memories of earlier peoples have woven into the myths of later ones? Was Sundaland not only a drowned homeland, but also a palimpsest of human history, layered and erased by the sea? Geologists studying the South China Sea floor have traced ancient river channels, now submerged, that once carried freshwater from the heart of Sundaland to its coasts. These drowned rivers suggest landscapes where farming and fishing could have flourished. If so, the submersion of these valleys would have been catastrophic on a scale we can barely imagine. Imagine the Mississippi River Valley or the Nile Delta vanishing beneath the sea. That is the scale of Sundaland's loss. Some speculate further that perhaps Sundaland is the true source of certain global flood traditions, even of the myth of Atlantis itself. The timing, around 12,000 years ago, aligns uncannily with Plato's story. To Greek sailors, Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles. To the people of Asia, the lost land lay to the east. Different directions, same memory. A drowned world, a vanished continent. Whether or not Sundaland inspired these myths, it is clear that its story belongs to the larger human memory of loss. The ocean has always been a thief, swallowing land, erasing evidence, leaving only fragments. And in those fragments, we piece together what might have been. Today, the shallow seas of Southeast Asia are busy shipping lanes. Beneath the waves lie coral reefs, oil fields, and the remains of drowned forests. But if you could drain those waters away, you would stand on a continent that no longer exists, a place where rivers waded across wide plains, where people lived and dreamed, where the first chapters of human civilization may have been written. Sundaland reminds us that lost continents are not always mythical. Some are real, erased not by imagination, but by the relentless rise of the sea. And perhaps that is why it feels even more haunting than Atlantis or Mu. Because while we may doubt Plato's allegory or dismiss Victorian theories, we cannot deny Sundaland. It was there. It vanished. And with it, perhaps, vanished a part of our story. From the air, New Zealand appears as a scattering of green islands rising from the vastness of the South Pacific. To the casual observer, these islands are merely isolated landmasses, remote outposts at the edge of the world. But beneath the waves lies something far more remarkable, a nearly submerged continent, stretching across 4.9 million square kilometers, larger than India. This is Zealandia. For most of the 20th century, geologists knew little about this hidden land. The islands of New Zealand and New Caledonia were mapped, mountains measured, and coastlines charted, but the larger context remained invisible. Only in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, with advances in satellite mapping, seismic surveys, and ocean floor studies, did the full picture emerge. Beneath the sea, Zealandia rises as a distinct, coherent block of continental crust. It is not merely a collection of islands, it is a continent, almost entirely submerged. Zealandia's story begins roughly 100 million years ago, when the supercontinent Gondwana began to break apart. Australia drifted northward, Antarctica settled into its polar position, and the land that would become New Zealand stretched and separated from its neighbors. Over time, much of Zealandia sank beneath the ocean, leaving only its tallest peaks visible above the waves. These peaks became today's islands, the only sign of a once vast landmass. Geologists classify continents by specific criteria. A coherent area of continental crust, clearly defined boundaries, distinct geology from oceanic crust, and elevations above the surrounding seabed. Zealandia meets all these criteria. Yet for decades, it was ignored or dismissed because, after all, most of it lies underwater. Its discovery reframes our understanding of continental evolution. Zealandia reminds us that the Earth's crust is more dynamic and surprising than we often imagine. Continents do not need to be entirely visible to exist. They can shrink, sink, and nearly disappear, leaving only fragments as testimony to their former grandeur. But Zealandia is not merely a geological curiosity. Its emergence above the waves, its submergence, and its partial survival have profound implications for biology and human history. New Zealand itself is a repository of unique life forms. Flightless birds like the kiwi and the kakapo evolved in isolation, as did a rich variety of plants. Scientists suggest that some of these species may trace their ancestry to ancient Gondwanan lineages that once spread across Zealandia. The hidden continent has, in this sense, preserved a living memory of Earth's deep past. Odd facts abound. The Chatham Islands, thousands of kilometers east of New Zealand, are geologically part of Zealandia. So too is New Caledonia, far to the north. Underwater ridges, plateaus, and submerged peaks form the hidden backbone of the continent, waiting to be studied. Recent research even suggests that Zealandia's continental crust is unusually thin, making its near submersion possible. A slight change in sea level millions of years ago might have revealed it as a continuous landmass. The story of Zealandia is also a reminder of the blurred lines between visibility and existence. For centuries, humans assumed continents must rise above water to exist. Zealandia defies that assumption, proving that the Earth holds secrets just below the surface, waiting for modern science to uncover them. Beyond the science, Zealandia carries a subtle narrative about loss and survival. Like Sundaland in Southeast Asia or Doggerland beneath the North Sea, it hints at a world where land is impermanent, where entire ecosystems can vanish beneath the waves. Islands are survivors, but the continent as a whole has been mostly claimed by the ocean. Its hidden presence reminds us that even in our age of maps and satellites, much of Earth's history lies out of sight in silent, watery realms. Some speculate further. Could Zealandia have been home to unknown ancient civilizations? Certainly, humans did not appear on Earth until millions of years later, long after Zealandia sank. Yet imagining a lost continent beneath our feet sparks the same curiosity as legends of Atlantis or Lemuria. It is a real continent, verified by science, yet it is hidden in plain sight. It exists both physically and conceptually, as a symbol of Earth's hidden depths. And Zealandia is not static. Geological processes continue to shape it. Earthquakes and volcanic activity in New Zealand remind us that the crust is alive, slowly moving and adjusting. The waters of the Pacific, restless as ever, lap against its peaks, shaping them, eroding them, and altering the borders of land and sea. Zealandia is a living reminder of the dynamic forces that govern our planet. The discovery of Zealandia also challenges our ideas of what constitutes a continent. When we think of continents, we picture expansive landmasses: Africa, Asia, the Americas. But Zealandia teaches us that size and exposure are not the only defining characteristics. A continent can almost disappear, leaving only the tips of mountains above the waves. Yet it remains a coherent piece of Earth's crust, distinct in composition, structure, and history. Perhaps most poignantly, Zealandia encourages reflection on the impermanence of land. For millennia, humans have assumed that the continents we know are permanent, fixed, and eternal. Yet, like Sundaland, like Doggerland, like the mythic realms of Lemuria and Atlantis, Zealandia reminds us that continents are transient, subject to forces far beyond human control. What is solid today may sink tomorrow. What exists may one day vanish beneath the ocean's calm surface. In this sense, Zealandia becomes more than geology. It becomes a mirror of our own fragility. If the Earth can hide an entire continent beneath its waves, what else remains unseen? What stories, what lands, what histories are buried beneath oceans and sediments, awaiting discovery? And so, as we fly above New Zealand, or sail past its distant islands, or dive into the cold Pacific waters, we are standing at the edge of a hidden continent. A land that challenges our perception of permanence, that connects us to deep time, and that reminds us of the unseen forces that shape the world. Zealandia is not lost, not in the scientific sense, yet it is largely invisible, a continent beneath our feet, whispering stories of a world we only half perceive. Far from the sight of most humans, in the cold expanse of the southern Indian Ocean, lies a landmass both vast and hidden. Its peaks rise hundreds of meters above the seabed, yet barely break the waves. It is the Kerguelen Plateau, a submerged volcanic plateau, sometimes whispered about as a ghost continent, a fragment of Gondwana swallowed by the ocean's depths. To imagine it is to picture a land that has existed for tens of millions of years, a remnant of a world before the continents assumed their current shapes. Today, it stretches beneath the waters like a forgotten skeleton of Earth's crust, spanning over 2.2 million square kilometers larger than Greenland, yet mostly hidden beneath the waves. The story of the Kerguelen Plateau begins in the deep past, around 130 million years ago, during the breakup of Gondwana, the supercontinent that contained Africa, South America, Antarctica, India, and Australia. As the plates drifted apart, molten rock welled up from the mantle, creating massive volcanic eruptions. Over time, these eruptions built the Kerguelen Plateau, first as a series of islands, then largely submerged as the crust cooled and sank. Geologists classify it as a large igneous province, Lipi, a category that includes some of the largest volcanic formations in Earth's history. Unlike continents composed of stable continental crust, the Kerguelen Plateau is volcanic in origin, yet it behaves like a fragment of a continent. Some researchers have even described it as a microcontinent, ghostly and half-forgotten, a bridge between the deep past and the ocean floor we chart today. Strange though it may seem, Kerguelen has not always been submerged. Fossilized remains of plants and animals suggest that parts of it were once above water, forming islands that supported life for millions of years. Turtles, penguins, and other creatures colonized its surfaces, leaving behind bones and traces that tell the story of life clinging to volcanic outcrops. Even today, a few peaks remain above sea level, forming the Kerguelen Islands, a remote, windswept archipelago that seems almost afloat in isolation, a reminder of the plateau beneath. The Kerguelen Plateau is also remarkable for what it tells us about continental drift. It is one of the few visible traces of the dynamic forces that shape the southern oceans. By studying its rocks, scientists can reconstruct the movement of Antarctica, India, and Australia over millions of years. It is, in a sense, a geological time capsule, a silent witness to Earth's restless crust. Yet there is a haunting quality to Kerguelen. Unlike Zealandia, which has islands that support life, Kerguelen is mostly submerged, desolate, and inaccessible. It is easy to imagine it as a lost continent, its ghost whispering across the cold waters, reminding us that not all vanished lands are mythic. Some truly exist, hidden beneath the waves, and some may even have supported ecosystems now erased from memory. Odd facts underscore its strangeness. The plateau has enormous underwater plateaus and ridges, forming intricate seamounts and volcanic peaks. Its oceanic crust is thick and anomalous, differing from the surrounding seabed. Hydrothermal vents and unique marine life cling to its slopes. Geologists describe it as both part of the oceanic landscape and yet something separate, a phantom of Gondwana drifting beneath modern waters. The Kerguelen Plateau also highlights the impermanence of land. Islands that existed millions of years ago have vanished. Forests have drowned. Creatures that walked its surface are known only from fossils or extinct lineages. Today, the windswept Kerguelen Islands host hardy seals, seabirds, and researchers braving one of the most remote locations on Earth. The plateau's history is one of creation, submersion, and survival in fragmentary form. Some speculate about the possibilities this hidden land once held. If larger portions had remained above sea level, could Kerguelen have hosted more complex ecosystems or even ancient human travelers much later? Humans arrived in Antarctica and nearby southern lands only in the modern era, long after Kerguelen was mostly submerged. Yet the idea of a lost southern continent feeds the imagination, linking the plateau to myths of forgotten worlds in the southern oceans. And Kerguelen's significance is not merely scientific. Its existence challenges how we define continents and microcontinents. Traditional definitions focus on exposed land and human habitation, yet Kerguelen shows that much of Earth's continental crust can hide below the waves. It reminds us that the planet is more fluid than our maps suggest, that the surface is only a fraction of the story written in stone and water. Geologically, Kerguelen continues to evolve. Volcanic activity persists, though slowly, as the mantle beneath feeds isolated eruptions. The plateau's edges are scarred by tectonic stresses, rifts, and faults. In this way, Kerguelen is a living laboratory, a reminder that even ghost continents are part of the ongoing choreography of Earth's crust. Poetically, Kerguelen evokes the same allure as Atlantis or Lemuria, though it is real and verifiable. It is a continent that has largely vanished, yet persists beneath the waves, a bridge to the distant past. Sail over the southern Indian Ocean, and you are drifting above a world few have seen, a landscape older than human memory, shaped by forces we can barely imagine. Perhaps most compelling is what Kerguelen teaches us about loss and survival. Continents do not remain fixed. Some submerge entirely. Others survive in fragments. Life endures where it can, even if only in tiny islands or resilient marine communities. Kerguelen is a ghost not just of land, but of possibility, a testament to the transient and often hidden nature of Earth's features. And so, as waves pound the hidden peaks and currents sweep across submerged ridges, one might pause to imagine. Once, Kerguelen was above water, perhaps forested, perhaps home to creatures lost to time. Today, it is invisible, nearly forgotten, yet it exists proof that our planet still holds secrets, that not all continents are fully known, and that sometimes truth is stranger and more haunting than myth. Kerguelen reminds us that lost continents need not exist only in legend. Some are ghostly, sunken, and almost beyond reach, yet their traces remain, silently influencing our understanding of Earth's history. They are echoes of a time when the world was less stable, when land could rise and fall, and when oceans could claim what once seemed permanent. Beneath the cold, gray waters of the North Sea lies a world almost forgotten, a landscape that existed long before modern Europe took shape. Today, fishermen trawl for cod, oil rigs pierce the waves, and shipping lanes crisscross the surface. Yet below the surface, an entire continent, or at least a substantial landmass, once stretched, connecting what are now Britain, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany. This was Doggerland, a realm lost to rising seas, but preserved in fragments of sediment, stone tools, and human memory. Imagine the North Sea, not as water, but as fertile plains interwoven with rivers, lakes, and marshes. The climate was temperate, warmer than today's chilly northern Europe, and abundant with life. Herds of elk, wild cattle, and aurochs roamed the grasslands. Mammoths and reindeer grazed in distant fields. Birds filled the skies. It was a land alive, a place of sustenance where human communities could thrive. Mesolithic people lived here long before written history. They fished the rivers, hunted the herds, and gathered plants for food. Archaeologists have uncovered tools, microliths, flint blades, bone implements that testify to a society skilled in adapting to its environment. Some of these artifacts have been dredged from the seabed during modern fishing, silent witnesses of a vanished homeland. Doggerland's story is one of gradual loss. As the last ice age ended, glaciers melted and sea levels began to rise. At first, the changes were slow. Rivers widened, marshes expanded, small lakes formed where valleys had once been dry. The Mesolithic inhabitants adapted, moving inland, adjusting to shifting shorelines. Yet the process was relentless. By about 6,500 to 6,000 BCE, what had been a vast plain was largely submerged. Islands remained here and there, and eventually, even they disappeared beneath the waves, leaving nothing visible of the homeland that had nurtured countless generations. Oddly, Doggerland was not entirely unknown to history. Fishermen for centuries pulled bones from the sea floor remains of mammoths, rhinoceroses, and elk without knowing where they had come from. Some speculated about giants or monsters, weaving stories around the bones that emerged from the waters. Only in the 20th century did scientific inquiry begin to reveal the true scale of the lost land, using sonar mapping, sediment analysis, and underwater archaeology. The human stories of Doggerland are especially poignant because this was not a mythical civilization. It was ordinary people, living day to day, whose world disappeared. Their homes, hunting grounds, and sacred sites sank gradually but irrevocably. What was once familiar became foreign, replaced by saltwater and storms. One can imagine families watching the tide encroach, knowing that tomorrow the land they walked on would be underwater. Some archaeologists believe that the flooding of Doggerland may have been sudden at times. Tsunamis, triggered by earthquakes or landslides beneath the North Atlantic, could have swept across the plains, reshaping the coastlines overnight. Such catastrophic events may have reinforced flood myths that circulated among early European cultures. Could stories of drowned lands, passed down orally for generations, echo the memory of Doggerland's disappearance? The area also reminds us of the fragility of human settlements in the face of nature. Today, we build cities along coastlines, assuming technology can resist rising seas. But Doggerland tells a different story, that even the most fertile and hospitable lands are temporary, vulnerable to the slow, inexorable rise of the ocean. It is a lesson written not in stone, but in water and sediment, preserved under kilometers of North Sea waves. Doggerland has left a surprising legacy. Genetic studies suggest that populations in modern Britain and northern Europe carry traces of the Mesolithic inhabitants of these plains. Archaeological evidence points to migrations as the sea rose, people moving to higher ground, some settling in what is now Britain after it became an island, others moving southward into continental Europe. In this sense, Doggerland's story is not just of loss, but of continuity, of human resilience in the face of environmental change. Odd facts emerge from the seabed. Ancient peat beds and submerged river channels reveal the layout of rivers that once flowed freely. Tools and bones occasionally appear tangled in fishing nets or dredged by construction projects. Each find is a tiny window into a vanished world, a reminder that Doggerland was real, tangible, and once full of life. The psychological resonance of Doggerland is powerful. Unlike Atlantis or Mu, it was not a myth. Unlike Sundaland, it existed on the fringe of human memory, within a time frame reachable by archaeological evidence. It forces us to imagine a Europe reshaped by climate, a map different from the one we know, a landscape of rivers, forests, and plains now submerged. It also reminds us that land can vanish without leaving dramatic ruin sometimes. All that remains are bones, stone tools, and sedimentary traces, quietly telling the story of human habitation. Speculatively, one can imagine Doggerland as a center of early culture and exchange. Its rivers would have been highways for trade, hunting, and social gatherings. Mesolithic groups may have traveled across the plains, sharing tools, techniques, and stories. The flooding disrupted these networks, scattering communities, forcing adaptation, and perhaps seeding new cultural practices in distant regions. There is also a poetic element to Doggerland. To think of a land slowly disappearing beneath the waves, of people adjusting to loss over generations, is to confront our own mortality on a civilizational scale. It is a reminder that humans are intimately tied to the environment, that the landscapes we inhabit shape us as much as we shape them, and that the Earth's forces are always patient, inexorable, and indifferent to human ambition. Modern technology continues to reveal the contours of Doggerland. Sonar mapping shows ridges and valleys, ancient river channels, and features that would have been fertile valleys in the Mesolithic. Sediment cores provide evidence of vegetation, climate, and human activity. Each discovery paints a more vivid picture of a land once alive, now submerged, waiting silently beneath the North Sea. Doggerland is also a mirror for contemporary fears. Rising seas, melting ice caps, and climate change evoke the same vulnerability experienced by its Mesolithic inhabitants. Humanity today faces challenges that echo the slow submersion of Doggerland land disappearing, communities forced to migrate, and the reshaping of familiar landscapes. In this sense, Doggerland is both history and warning, a reminder of nature's quiet but unstoppable power. And yet, despite its submersion, Doggerland continues to connect us to our distant ancestors. Its story is not one of myth or speculation, but of real humans living in a real place, adapting to changing conditions, and leaving traces that survive millennia. Every artifact recovered, every sediment layer analyzed, is a testament to the resilience and creativity of people who lived long before the tides claimed their world. In the end, Doggerland is more than a lost land. It is a human story submerged. It reminds us of our deep connection to the earth, our vulnerability to forces beyond our control, and the endurance of memory, even when landscapes vanish beneath the waves. The North Sea hides it, but it is not gone. It waits for those willing to listen, willing to piece together fragments, willing to imagine life on the plains where today there is only water. Doggerland lives in sediment, in stone tools, in the genetic echoes of its people, and in the imagination of those who picture what once was. Its mystery is not in grand myths or sunken cities, but in the quiet, human scale of loss and survival. And as we gaze out over the North Sea, feeling the wind and the cold spray, we can almost sense the plains beneath forests, rivers, and villages, reminding us that the Earth's story is far deeper, far richer, and far more mutable than our maps suggest. Water has always held a dual power over humanity, life-giver and destroyer. Rivers nourish civilizations, oceans connect continents, yet they also rise without warning, swallow coastlines, and erase memories. Across the globe, in cultures separated by oceans and centuries, stories persist of lands lost to the sea flood myths that speak of civilizations drowned, of gods punishing humankind, or of catastrophic events that reshaped the world. Consider Mesopotamia, the cradle of early urban life. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, a flood wipes out humanity, sparing only Utnapishtim, who survives by building a massive boat. The story carries astonishing parallels to the biblical tale of Noah, suggesting a shared memory of rising waters or a major inundation in ancient times. Some researchers propose that the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, or the sudden breaching of glacial lakes, may have inspired such legends. The waters that rose centuries ago remain etched in human consciousness, codified into narrative and ritual. Across the Pacific, indigenous Australian Dreamtime stories tell of ancestral lands submerged beneath the sea. Coastal tribes speak of islands and plains that no longer exist, of mountains that once emerged from waters now vanished. These myths often describe the deliberate action of the ocean, reshaping the world and teaching humans lessons about respect, balance, and survival. For these communities, drowned lands are not merely historical, they are spiritual landscapes, living memory encoded in songlines, stories, and ceremony. In South Asia, the legend of Kumari Kandam speaks of a vast continent stretching across the Indian Ocean, swallowed by waves after eons of human habitation. Ancient Tamil texts describe fertile plains, advanced cities, and a proud civilization lost beneath the ocean. While the literal existence of Kumari Kandam remains speculative, its persistence in literature and culture suggests that collective memory can survive even the most cataclysmic environmental changes. Perhaps rising seas at the end of the last ice age nourished these stories, embedding them into the psyche of coastal civilizations. Mesoamerican myths, too, hint at catastrophic floods. The Popol Vuh of the Quiché Maya describes a deluge that destroyed the first humans, who were made of clay, before they were remade from maize. While it is unlikely that this region experienced a global-scale inundation, it is plausible that local floods, rising lakes, or volcanic tsunamis inspired these vivid narratives, demonstrating that humanity's fear and respect for water is universal. Even Europe has its echoes. In Celtic and Norse traditions, stories of drowned lands Cantre'r Gwalad in Wales, Lyoness off the Cornish coast, and the numerous Scandinavian flood tales suggest that ancient peoples witnessed rising seas and changing coastlines. Archaeological evidence supports some of these accounts. Submerged forests, peat beds, and drowned villages along European coasts attest to incremental but dramatic shifts in land and sea during the Holocene. What is striking is the consistency across continents and millennia. These myths rarely describe slow geological processes in detail. Instead, they narrate sudden, dramatic events, often with moral or spiritual lessons. Could these stories reflect actual catastrophes that shaped human settlement patterns? Rising seas, glacial meltwater floods, volcanic tsunamis, any of these could have left indelible impressions on early humans, preserved and passed down as legend. Some scholars argue that myths of a drowned world serve another purpose. They encode memory of migration and adaptation. When coasts vanish, survivors must move inland or across oceans. These migrations become epic tales, embedding geographic knowledge into oral tradition. Doggerland in the North Sea, Sundaland in Southeast Asia, and even smaller submerged plains could be the historical foundations of these myths, the real lands behind allegory. Consider the odd fact of submerged structures and ancient peat beds. Off the coasts of Europe, layers of trees and tools lie beneath the waves, suggesting that people once lived there. In Southeast Asia, underwater channels mark former rivers, lined with artifacts and fossils. These are not merely stories. They are the archaeological echoes of what the myths describe. Flood legends may be the human mind's way of encoding the trauma of environmental change into narrative form. The universality of these myths suggests a profound human response to catastrophe and loss. Rising waters are terrifying, yet they are also necessary, shaping new opportunities. Flood myths often end with survival, preservation, or rebirth. Utnapishtim, Noah, and the recreation of humans from maize or clay. In this way, the stories acknowledge the destructive power of water while emphasizing resilience, adaptation, and hope. Humanity, it seems, has always sought to make sense of the forces that shape the world, turning environmental upheaval into culture and memory. Speculatively, some researchers even suggest that these myths may encode ancient geographic knowledge. Oral traditions preserve information about coastlines, tidal patterns, and drowned lands. The legends may not be literal history, but they provide hints that a careful, imaginative mind can interpret clues to places like Sundaland, Doggerland, or even submerged platforms in the Indian Ocean. Stories, passed down for generations, can act as maps in human memory, preserving knowledge long before written maps existed. Oddly, the myths sometimes converge on similar motifs. Waters rising quickly, entire civilizations lost, mountains and plains swallowed, humanity surviving in fragments. Whether in Mesopotamia, India, Australia, or Mesoamerica, the story remains compelling. The world can change rapidly, and human society must adapt or vanish. The repetition of this theme across time and space suggests that humans everywhere experience the deep anxiety and awe inspired by water as power. Myths of the drowned world also carry a philosophical resonance. They ask questions about impermanence, stewardship, and the relationship between humans and the natural world. These are not just survival stories. They are reflections on morality, on civilization's fragility, and on the delicate balance between life and the forces beyond our control. They teach us to respect what sustains us, to remember what we have lost, and to imagine worlds that once were. And so, as we survey the modern globe, it is easy to see the echoes of these myths in the landscapes around us. Submerged forests, drowned plains, and rising seas remind us that the stories are not merely allegory. They are memory encoded in myth, a bridge between what was real and what is imagined. Every legend of lost continents, every tale of great floods, whispers of human ingenuity, survival, and the silent, relentless shaping of the earth. Perhaps the most compelling question is this: how much of our collective imagination is informed by landscapes we can no longer see? Every coastal flood, every vanished landmass, every ancient shoreline that lies beneath waves has the potential to live on in story. The myths of the drowned world are not just remnants of fear. They are archives of experience, encoded in narrative for thousands of years, waiting for us to listen. In the end, these myths invite reflection. They remind us that the earth is alive, restless, and ever-changing. They connect disparate peoples across continents and millennia. They speak of loss, resilience, and the profound mystery of landscapes hidden beneath water. And they remind us that while the seas may reclaim land, human memory, whether oral, written, or imagined, preserves the echo of what was once solid and familiar. The drowned world may be gone, but its stories remain. Rivers rise, plains vanish, and islands disappear, yet legends endure. They are the bridge between science and imagination, between memory and myth, between what we can see and what lies hidden beneath the waves. From space, Madagascar appears as a solitary jewel, suspended off the southeastern coast of Africa, its coastlines fringed with coral reefs and turquoise waters. To the casual observer, it is simply an island large, beautiful, and biologically unique. But beneath its soils, rocks, and forests lies a story that stretches back hundreds of millions of years. A story that connects Madagascar to the great supercontinent Gondwana and hints at vanished microcontinents lost to time. Madagascar did not always float in isolation. Roughly 160 million years ago, during the late Jurassic, it was attached to Africa, India, and Antarctica. These landmasses formed a complex tapestry of continental crust, a web of interconnected terrain that supported life and shaped Earth's climate. As Gondwana fragmented, Madagascar drifted eastward, eventually settling near its present location. Yet its journey was not a simple drift. It carried with it geological secrets, fragments of crust, and traces of connections to regions now vanished beneath the oceans. Geologists have long puzzled over Madagascar's rock formations. Ancient crystalline rocks, dating back more than 2 billion years, reveal affinities with both India and East Africa. Sedimentary layers preserve evidence of ancient rivers and shallow seas, pointing to environments far older than the island's current configuration. Fossilized plants and vertebrates show links with distant lands, suggesting migration and ecological continuity across now separated continents. Madagascar is, in many ways, a fragment of a much larger world, a living archive of Earth's geological memory. The notion of Madagascar as other half emerges from the study of microcontinents, small fragments of continental crust that have broken away, submerged, or drifted independently over millions of years. Some researchers propose that Madagascar may have once been part of a larger microcontinent, now mostly underwater, extending into the Indian Ocean. Evidence comes from zircon crystals, isotopic analyses, and the patterns of oceanic crust surrounding the island. These tiny mineral grains, carried in sands and sediments, act like time capsules, telling stories of land that existed long before humans appeared. Oddly, Madagascar's isolation has also preserved life forms found nowhere else on Earth. Lemurs, tenrecs, and hundreds of endemic plant species evolved in splendid isolation, while elsewhere their relatives vanished or were outcoveted. This unique biodiversity hints at a landmass once connected to others, a stepping stone for species migration, and possibly a remnant of a broader continental network now hidden beneath the sea. Even today, every lemur, every orchid, every baobab tree is a living echo of Madagascar's ancient geological journey. The island's history is a mirror of continental impermanence. Landmasses drift, sink, and rise. Microcontinents are born from fractures and subduction, only to vanish beneath oceans over geological timescales. Madagascar reminds us that what appears solitary may have once been intimately connected, part of a network of lands that no longer exist. In this sense, the island is both a survivor and a witness, a fragment of something larger that time and water have mostly erased. The story of Madagascar also intersects with human curiosity and imagination. Sailors, explorers, and cartographers of the past marveled at its size and isolation. Early European maps hinted at connections to lands now invisible, while myths and legends of vanished southern continents, Lemuria and Kumari Kandam, for instance, evoked a lost world in the Indian Ocean. Modern science may dismiss some of these stories as speculative, yet geological evidence reveals that they are not entirely fantastical. Fragments of lost land, submerged microcontinents, and drifting plates provide a basis for the imagination. Geologically, Madagascar continues to reveal its secrets. Offshore surveys and seismic mapping show submerged ridges, plateaus, and crustal fragments that may represent extensions of its ancient connections. The Mascarene Plateau, stretching toward the Seychelles and Reunion, is a potential remnant of these lost terrains. Some researchers speculate that small islands and submerged features scattered across the Indian Ocean are pieces of the puzzle, hinting at a once continuous continental fabric now swallowed by the sea. This hidden history carries profound ecological implications. Species that evolved in Madagascar's isolation are often relics, survivors of ecosystems that existed across now vanished lands. The island's forests and reefs act as a living archive, preserving lineages that may have once extended across the Indian Ocean. Each endemic species becomes not just a curiosity, but a testament to geological and ecological history, a bridge between the vanished and the extant. Odd facts punctuate this narrative. Some zircon crystals in Madagascar are over 3 billion years old, among the oldest in the southern hemisphere. These ancient minerals tell of continents long vanished, continents that may have stretched far beyond the island's current shores. Sedimentary basins contain fossilized coral reefs and marine creatures that indicate shallow seas, suggesting that Madagascar's neighbors were once submerged landscapes, gradually consumed by the expanding Indian Ocean. Madagascar's story is a reminder of the dynamic Earth. Tectonic forces, volcanic activity, and rising seas constantly reshape continents, islands, and microcontinents. What exists today is only a snapshot in a long continuum. Islands like Madagascar are survivors, visible fragments of a much larger and more complex past. They prompt reflection on impermanence, resilience, and the vast scale of geological time realities that dwarf human perception, but shape every aspect of life on Earth. Speculatively, one can imagine Madagascar as part of a network of vanished lands. Perhaps it was once connected to Sundaland, Zealandia, or other submerged microcontinents. Perhaps species migration, climate patterns, and even human mythologies were influenced by these vanished terrains. While direct evidence is scarce, the hypothesis invites contemplation, merging science with the poetic allure of lost worlds. Ultimately, Madagascar is both island and memory, a living record of the Earth's past, a fragment of Gondwana preserved above water. Its forests, reefs, and mountains are more than natural wonders. They are markers of survival, testimony to the forces that created and destroyed land, and hints of the continents that vanished long ago. In this way, Madagascar stands as a symbol of both permanence and impermanence, a tangible piece of a lost world, quietly enduring in isolation. As waves crash on its shores and winds sweep across its forests, Madagascar speaks of a hidden history beneath the Indian Ocean. It reminds us that land is never static, that the Earth holds stories invisible to most eyes, and that even the most isolated islands are often fragments of a much larger, vanished reality. Madagascar's other half may be underwater, obscured by the sea, but its presence lingers in rock, soil, and life. It is a reminder that the planet is alive, restless, and full of secrets. And in studying it, we are not only uncovering geological history, we are glimpsing a world that once existed, a world now largely hidden, yet preserved in fragments, waiting for human curiosity to reveal it. On the tropical island of Mauritius, the turquoise waves lap gently against white sandy beaches, and palm trees sway in the warm ocean breeze. Tourists see paradise, a remote, idyllic island in the Indian Ocean. But beneath the sands lies a much older story, one that stretches back billions of years, and hints at a vanished world hidden beneath the waves, the lost land of Mauritius. The discovery began with something almost imperceptible, tiny zircon crystals embedded in Mauritian sands. These crystals are not ordinary grains of sand. They are ancient time capsules, surviving the relentless weathering of millennia. When scientists analyzed them in 2013, they were astonished. The zircons were up to 3 billion years old, far older than the volcanic island itself, which had formed only about 8 million years ago. How could crystals older than the island have arrived here? The answer, it seemed, lay beneath the waves. Geologists propose that Mauritius sits atop fragments of an ancient microcontinent, a piece of crust that once formed part of a larger landmass. This lost land, later named Mauritia, likely split from Madagascar and India during the breakup of Gondwana, drifting and partially submerging under the Indian Ocean. The zircons were fragments of this ancient crust, carried to the surface by volcanic activity that formed the island. In essence, Mauritius is the tip of a submerged continent, a remnant of a world long erased by ocean and time. Mauritia is a striking example of the hidden complexity of the planet. Unlike Madagascar, which remains largely above water, Mauritia is almost entirely submerged, its remnants scattered beneath the waves. Satellite data, seismic surveys, and geophysical models suggest that fragments of continental crust may stretch over thousands of kilometers, forming a ghostly map beneath the Indian Ocean. Its peaks occasionally emerge as volcanic islands, while the majority lies silent, hidden, and largely unexplored. This discovery reshaped our understanding of the Indian Ocean and microcontinents in general. It showed that even in regions long thought to be purely oceanic, continental fragments persist, preserved beneath layers of younger volcanic rock. It forced geologists to reconsider how continents break apart, how land can vanish, and how the history of Earth is recorded, not just in mountains and plains, but in the hidden crust beneath our oceans. Oddly, the story of Mauritia mirrors the mythical continents of the Indian Ocean. Ancient legends speak of Kumari Kandam or Lemuria, vast lands lost beneath the waves. While science does not support these myths in their entirety, the discovery of Mauritia adds a grain of truth to centuries-old speculation. There was, indeed, land now drowned beneath the Indian Ocean. The myths and the crystals converge, blending imagination with geological reality. Mauritia also offers a glimpse into the dynamic processes that shape our planet. The microcontinent was formed during the early stages of Gondwana's fragmentation. As India and Madagascar drifted apart, pieces of continental crust were left behind, submerged, and later overlain by volcanic flows. Over time, the relentless ocean and tectonic forces eroded much of the surface, leaving only scattered fragments. The zircons that now appear on Mauritius are survivors of this ancient invisible world, a geological whisper of a lost land. The implications extend beyond geology. If fragments of Mauritia existed above water in the past, they could have hosted ecosystems, species, and perhaps even early human populations, much as Sundaland did in Southeast Asia. Fossil evidence remains scarce, yet the possibility tantalizes the imagination. Could tiny islands of Mauritia have supported life millions of years ago? Did flora and fauna migrate across these vanished lands, leaving descendants on Madagascar, India, and nearby regions? The answers lie buried beneath kilometers of water, waiting for future exploration. Mauritia also challenges our perception of permanence. We often think of islands and continents as stable, enduring, and familiar. Yet here is a world almost entirely erased, leaving only faint traces in crystals and submerged crust. It reminds us that the Earth is restless, that landmasses can drift, submerge, and vanish entirely over geological time. Even today's maps capture only a fleeting moment in a story that stretches billions of years. Odd facts highlight its strangeness. Some zircons suggest crustal activity dating back to the Archean, long before complex life existed on Earth. Others point to ancient tectonic collisions and fragmentations, evidence of a microcontinent that survived multiple cycles of breakup and submergence. These fragments lie hidden beneath the Indian Ocean, imperceptible yet massive, forming a hidden architecture of ancient Earth beneath modern waves. Mauritia's story is a bridge between myth, geology, and imagination. The myths of lost continents, once dismissed as fanciful, now find echoes in hard science. Zircons act as tangible evidence that fragments of ancient landmasses persist. They show that continents are not monolithic. They are mosaics, constantly shifting, fracturing, and occasionally vanishing beneath the seas. Mauritia demonstrates that the line between legend and reality is sometimes thinner than we imagine. Speculatively, one can envision Mauritia as a stepping stone for ancient species. Its submerged plains may once have been islands connected by shallow seas, facilitating the movement of plants, animals, and perhaps early hominins. In this light, the Indian Ocean was not always a vast barrier, but a dynamic landscape of islands and microcontinents, slowly sinking over millions of years, shaping the distribution of life and the course of evolution. The discovery of Mauritia also inspires reflection on human curiosity. For centuries, islands like Mauritius have seemed isolated and permanent, yet beneath them lies a hidden ancient history waiting to be uncovered. Science has only just begun to reveal the secrets of these submerged lands, and with each zircon, each seismic survey, we glimpse fragments of worlds that existed long before humanity arrived. Ultimately, Mauritia is both real and elusive, a lost land beneath the waves, whose story challenges our understanding of continents, oceans, and the passage of time. It reminds us that Earth's history is not fully written on the surface. Much of it lies hidden in crustal fragments, waiting for discovery. The ocean is a vast archive, preserving memories of vanished worlds, whispering stories in the language of rock and mineral. As the waves wash the beaches of Mauritius and the wind bends the palm trees, one can almost feel the weight of what lies beneath. A vanished microcontinent, ancient, silent, and enduring. The zircons scattered in the sands are the fingerprints of Mauritia, a fragment of a forgotten past, calling us to remember that the Earth is far more complex, mysterious, and alive than we often realize. Mauritia is proof that lost continents are not merely stories, myths, or speculation. Some truly exist, submerged and silent, yet recorded in rock, mineral, and the hidden architecture of the ocean floor. Its discovery is a reminder that exploration and curiosity can reveal worlds we never knew were there, worlds older than civilization, older than memory, and almost unimaginably distant in time. Maps are more than tools. They are windows into the human mind, repositories of knowledge, and sometimes mirrors of mystery. They chart coastlines, mountains, rivers, and deserts, but occasionally they do something stranger. They hint at lands that should not exist, coastlines that could not have been known, and continents lost to memory. Among these curious artifacts, the most famous is the Piri Reis map, a 16th century Ottoman chart that has confounded historians, geologists, and cartographers for centuries. The Piri Reis map was drawn in 1513 by an admiral and cartographer in the Ottoman Empire. On a fragment of gazelle skin parchment, he carefully charted the western coasts of Europe and Africa, but it is the depiction of South America that has captured imaginations. Even more astonishing is the claim by some researchers that the southernmost part of the map seems to show the Antarctic coast, and not as a frozen wasteland, but as if ice-free, complete with mountains and rivers. This is centuries before Antarctica was officially discovered. How could a mapmaker of the early 1500s chart a continent that would remain hidden under ice for millennia? Mainstream explanations suggest that the Piri Reis map compiled older sources, some dating back to lost ancient charts. Scholars argue that sailors and explorers shared fragmented knowledge, which was then pieced together, sometimes inaccurately, over centuries. The map might reflect speculation, interpretation, or conflation of distant lands rather than literal observation. Yet the precision in some areas, particularly in the South American coastline, suggests that at least part of this knowledge may have been empirical, drawn from earlier, forgotten voyages or records. Odd facts amplify the mystery. Analysis of the map's coastlines reveals surprising accuracy in proportions, distances, and latitudinal alignment, far exceeding what was thought possible in the early 16th century. Some researchers propose that the map incorporates knowledge lost during the cataclysms that reshaped Earth's continents. Memories of coastlines that existed before rising seas and ice ages reshaped the planet. If this is true, it would imply that human knowledge of geography stretches far deeper into prehistory than conventional history allows. The Piri Reis map is not alone in suggesting lands that shouldn't exist. Other maps, such as the Zeno map of the North Atlantic, depict islands that may have been submerged or misidentified, while ancient Chinese and Polynesian charts hint at oceanic knowledge that challenges assumptions about the age and reach of maritime exploration. Some charts even depict islands or features now drowned beneath modern sea levels, echoing the vanished worlds of Doggerland, Sundaland, and Mauritius. Could these maps be preserving the memory of lands swallowed by the oceans? Exploring these maps is like peering through a foggy window into forgotten epochs. Some speculate that they were derived from Atlantean knowledge or pre-modern civilizations with remarkable seafaring and surveying skills. Others insist they are practical compilations of explorers' notes and sailor anecdotes, enhanced with imagination to fill gaps. Yet the convergence of accuracy in some locations, with apparent depiction of submerged or ice-free regions, fuels fascination and controversy. The Antarctic question is particularly compelling. If the southern continent is depicted ice-free, as the Piri Reis map suggests, it could reflect a time before the continent was completely glaciated, perhaps tens of thousands of years ago. This has led some to wonder whether ancient civilizations lost to history may have charted coastlines now buried under ice, their knowledge somehow preserved and transmitted across millennia. While mainstream geology dismisses this as coincidence or misinterpretation, the sheer detail in some coastal outlines remains perplexing. Odd facts from modern analysis deepen the intrigue. For instance, geologists comparing the map to sonar readings of the Antarctic seabed have noted that certain features correspond to real, submerged mountain ranges, valleys, and ridges that would only have been exposed before glaciation. Could this be an echo of lost geographical knowledge, encoded in maps passed down from forgotten explorers or civilizations? The possibility teases both science and imagination. Other maps contribute additional mysteries. Medieval charts from Europe sometimes show islands in locations where no land now exists. Polynesian oral tradition describes islands that disappeared into the sea, and ancient Chinese navigators wrote of lands never reached by modern explorers. Even the famed Catalan Atlas of the 14th century presents coastlines and rivers whose accuracy is astonishing given the supposed limits of medieval knowledge. These artifacts collectively challenge our assumptions about the depth of human exploration, mapping, and memory. Maps, in this context, become more than practical tools. They are repositories of memory, carrying hints of vanished lands, submerged continents, and forgotten knowledge. They allow us to ask provocative questions. Were these coastlines drawn from imagination, from ancient travelers, or from real observations of lands now lost to rising seas? Could some maps encode glimpses of Doggerland, Sundaland, or even Mauritius, preserved across centuries as fragile fragments of memory? Speculatively, one can imagine a network of maps, each drawing upon sources long vanished, preserving the outline of a world that no longer exists. The cartographers may have been unaware of the deeper implications, simply copying from older charts or oral descriptions. Yet when examined collectively, these maps suggest a continuity of knowledge that is striking, a persistent human curiosity to record, explore, and understand lands that may have disappeared in the span of human history. The psychological resonance of such maps is powerful. They remind us that humans are obsessed with connection and place, that we crave the ability to understand the world, and that even when continents vanish, memory, whether oral, written, or charted, can survive. Maps become time capsules, preserving a version of reality lost to climate change, tectonic shifts, or cataclysmic events. In this way, cartography intersects with mythology, geology, and human memory. Oddly, the maps sometimes even predict geological realities. The precision of certain submerged coastlines hints at knowledge that predates modern sonar or satellite mapping. Whether this reflects empirical observation, lucky coincidence, or transmission of ancient wisdom, it is a reminder that the past is far more layered and complex than textbooks suggest. Humans have been recording, observing, and interpreting the world for millennia, often preserving fragments of knowledge long before modern science can confirm them. Maps that shouldn't exist also illuminate the tension between known history and hidden knowledge. Some suggest that these charts encode lost civilizations, catastrophic floods, or vanished continents such as Lemuria, Mu, or Atlantis that shaped Earth's geography long before recorded history. Whether fact, legend, or a combination of both, these maps challenge assumptions and expand the boundaries of imagination. Ultimately, maps like the Piri Reis are more than curiosities. They are invitations. They invite us to explore, to question, and to imagine worlds that once were. They ask us to consider the impermanence of land, the persistence of memory, and the possibility that human knowledge stretches far deeper than we often acknowledge. In a world shaped by oceans, ice, and time, maps may preserve fragments of what has vanished, just as zircon crystals preserve fragments of lost continents. And so, as we study these enigmatic charts, we are reminded that lost lands are not just geological phenomena, nor purely myth. They exist in the minds and records of humans, waiting to be interpreted, questioned, and understood. Each map is a silent witness, hinting at coastlines that once were, mountains now submerged, and civilizations that may have vanished beneath waves. They blur the line between reality and imagination, science and legend, past and present. In the end, maps that shouldn't exist are more than puzzles. They are echoes of memory, remnants of knowledge that survived cataclysms, rising seas, and the passage of centuries. They invite us to see the Earth not just as it is today, but as it has been dynamic, mutable, and full of secrets waiting just beneath the surface. The world beneath the waves, the lands lost to time, and the knowledge preserved in parchment and crystal remind us that the story of our planet is still being uncovered, one fragment at a time. A vast, white expanse stretches beyond the horizon, winds whipping across a landscape of ice and snow. Antarctica, a continent of extremes, where temperatures plunge to unimaginable lows, and silence reigns over towering glaciers and frozen plains. To most, it is a land of ice, lifeless and remote. Yet beneath this frozen veneer lies a tantalizing possibility that long before humans first gazed upon it, Antarctica was warm, green, and inhabited, a land that may hold secrets of vanished continents, ancient climates, and perhaps even lost civilizations. Geology tells a story of transformation. Fossilized ferns, palm trees, and other flora have been discovered deep beneath the ice, indicating that Antarctica was once lush and temperate, a world of rivers, forests, and mild climates. During the Permian and early Triassic periods, around 250 million years ago, Antarctica was part of Gondwana, connected to South America, Africa, India, and Australia. The continent teemed with life, hosting plants and animals whose descendants spread across the southern continents. Ice, however, would eventually reclaim the land, beginning its slow march over tens of millions of years, burying once thriving ecosystems beneath kilometers of frozen rock and snow. Some researchers speculate that remnants of ice-free Antarctica persisted far more recently than generally acknowledged, possibly during the last interglacial periods, when global temperatures temporarily rose. Satellite imagery and radar surveys reveal mountain peaks poking through the ice, subglacial lakes, and hidden valleys that have remained isolated for millions of years. One can almost imagine forests and rivers flowing in these hidden landscapes, long before human memory or mythology. Could these isolated ice-free zones have been home to life forms unknown today, or even hints of early human activity? Odd facts deepen the mystery. In 2012, researchers discovered microbial life thriving in subglacial lakes, surviving in total darkness under extreme pressure. These discoveries demonstrate that Antarctica is not merely frozen dead land. It preserves ecosystems and histories inaccessible to the casual observer. In this sense, the continent itself acts as a time capsule, preserving clues about Earth's distant past, the forces that shaped it, and the possibilities of lands long vanished beneath ice or sea. The connection to Atlantis emerges in the realm of speculation. Some theorists suggest that Plato's account of a sunken, advanced civilization might echo memories of a world lost, not beneath the Atlantic, but beneath Antarctic ice. While mainstream archaeology dismisses this notion, the idea is compelling. If Antarctica was once habitable, it could have hosted human or proto-human populations, civilizations whose traces have been obliterated by glaciation. Ancient myths may preserve faint echoes of such lost worlds, transformed over millennia into allegory and legend. Geophysical studies have revealed even more tantalizing anomalies. Radar scans of the ice sheet uncover subglacial mountain ranges, valleys, and lakes, some of which resemble terrain that would have been suitable for habitation. These hidden landscapes, frozen yet preserved, suggest that Antarctica was not always a monolithic desert of ice. Its current state is the result of slow but inexorable climate change, ice sheet formation, and global cooling processes that can obliterate entire ecosystems, erase coastlines, and leave nothing but a frozen memory. Oddly, there are hints of submerged landmasses beneath the surrounding Southern Ocean that may have once been part of Antarctica. Continental fragments, microcontinents, and submerged ridges connect to the same tectonic processes that shaped Zealandia, Mauritius, and other vanished lands. Could these submerged regions have been habitable before the oceans rose? Could they provide clues about migrations, lost species, or even ancient seafaring knowledge that has long been erased? These are questions that science can only tentatively explore, yet the possibility is irresistible. Speculatively, one can imagine Antarctica not just as a continent of ice, but as a repository of forgotten history. Beneath kilometers of ice could lie evidence of past climates, ancient ecosystems, and perhaps even traces of civilizations that existed before global cooling reshaped the world. Every frozen valley and subglacial lake is a potential archive, preserving records of a world humans have only begun to understand. The idea that a once green Antarctica may have been a cradle or refuge for life opens the imagination to lost landscapes across time. This frozen narrative also intersects with the broader theme of lost continents. If Antarctica was once ice-free, it could have formed part of a larger southern network of lands connected to Gondwana and its fragments. Ancient species may have migrated across these continents, leaving traces on islands like Madagascar, submerged microcontinents like Mauritius, and even distant continents that are now hidden beneath oceans. Antarctica's ice, paradoxically, preserves these connections, acting as both eraser and conservator of history. Odd facts from climatology underscore the continent's dynamic past. Ice cores drilled in Antarctica reveal cycles of extreme temperature change, atmospheric composition shifts, and ancient volcanic eruptions. These records hint at periods when Antarctica may have supported more diverse ecosystems than previously imagined. Glacial advances and retreats were not linear but cyclical, and during warmer periods, life could have flourished, leaving imprints now buried beneath ice. Could these intervals have coincided with human habitation, long before conventional timelines suggest humans ventured so far south? The philosophical resonance of Antarctica is profound. It reminds us that what seems eternal and immutable vast ice sheets, rugged mountains, frozen plains, has not always existed in its current form. Land can vanish, climates can shift, and entire ecosystems can disappear. Antarctica serves as a mirror for other lost lands. It illustrates impermanence on a planetary scale, teaching that even continents are not permanent fixtures, but dynamic landscapes shaped by forces beyond human control. Some modern researchers even suggest that ancient cartography or myth may carry faint echoes of Antarctica's pre-glacial state. Could the descriptions of distant, sunken lands or advanced civilizations in myth reflect fragments of memory transmitted across millennia, distorted but still recognizable? While mainstream science treats these ideas with skepticism, the speculative connection adds a poetic layer to our understanding of the frozen continent, that beneath its ice lies a memory of warmth, life, and possibly human history. In the end, Antarctica is a paradox, frozen, inhospitable, and remote, yet teeming with hidden records of the Earth's past. Its ice conceals both life and geology, preserving clues about lost continents, vanished ecosystems, and perhaps forgotten civilizations. To study, it is to confront the fragility and transience of land, the impermanence of climate, and the resilience of life in extreme environments. As winds howl across glaciers and snow drifts bury peaks, Antarctica whispers its secrets to those willing to listen. Beneath the ice, valleys and lakes record a world that existed long before human memory, a world that may yet reveal remnants of life, land, and civilization. Every discovery, from ancient fossils to subglacial lakes and geological anomalies, reminds us that the planet is a mosaic of vanished worlds and hidden histories waiting to be uncovered. Antarctica is both a frozen grave and a time capsule, preserving a record of Earth's transformations, cataclysms, and mysteries. Its ice is not merely a barrier, but a library, silently chronicling the rise and fall of climates, continents, and ecosystems. It challenges us to imagine a world before ice, to consider the possibility of civilizations lost beneath glaciers, and to marvel at the scale of geological time. And so, as the sun glints off endless white plains and the Antarctic winds sweep the land in waves of frost, one is left with the haunting thought: beneath this frozen expanse lies memory, life, and possibly traces of worlds we have yet to comprehend. Antarctica is more than ice. It is a reminder of Earth's impermanence, its hidden histories, and the mysteries that endure beneath even the harshest conditions. The Indian Ocean stretches endlessly, its surface shimmering under the sun, waves tracing rhythmic patterns across a deep blue expanse. To modern eyes, it is simply a vast body of water, dotted with islands and coral reefs. But for centuries, it has been a repository of myths and memory, a canvas on which ancient peoples projected tales of lands swallowed by the sea. From Tamil, Malay, and Malagasy traditions, stories persist of lost continents, sunken kingdoms, and islands consumed by rising waters legends that may preserve echoes of geological events long before recorded history. In southern India and Sri Lanka, Tamil lore speaks of Kumari Kandam, a vast continent said to have stretched southwards into the Indian Ocean. According to these traditions, it was a cradle of civilization, rich with culture, learning, and spiritual practice. Scholars and storytellers describe cities, temples, and networks of rivers, all of which were eventually claimed by the sea in a great cataclysm. Though the exact details are mythic, the stories contain a striking consistency: a land of abundance, lost beneath waves, whose memory persisted in the oral traditions of the Tamil people. Mainstream historians often dismiss Kumari Kandam as legend, attributing its description to metaphorical storytelling or moral allegory. Yet the myth aligns with geological evidence. During the last ice age, sea levels were much lower, exposing continental shelves now submerged. Regions south of India, including parts of the present-day Indian Ocean seabed, may have supported human habitation and fertile lands. In this light, the legend of Kumari Kandam might not be pure fantasy, but a memory of lands that vanished beneath rising seas around 8,000 to 12,000 years ago. Malay myths also echo these stories. Ancient Malay seafarers told of lost islands and sunken kingdoms, often warning sailors of hidden shoals and treacherous currents where the ocean had claimed land. Oral traditions speak of people fleeing as the waters swallowed entire villages, carrying the cultural memory of migration, survival, and catastrophe across generations. These tales, passed down for centuries, may preserve indirect evidence of submerged microcontinents or islands, echoing the geological phenomena described by modern scientists studying sea level rise during the Holocene. Madagascar, too, preserves such memories. Malagasy traditions recount islands and lands that once lay beyond the visible horizon, now submerged beneath waves. These stories describe fertile plains, forests, and rivers lands that may correspond to fragments of Mauritius or other vanished microcontinents in the Indian Ocean. Here, myth and geology intersect. Oral history preserves clues that complement the physical evidence, suggesting that the disappearance of landmasses is not just geological, but humanly remembered. Odd facts punctuate these tales. In some versions of the Komari Kandam legend, the continent is said to have been home to advanced civilizations with writing, architecture, and social systems, whose knowledge was partially transmitted to surviving populations after the cataclysm. While archaeological confirmation remains elusive, the persistence of these stories across millennia is remarkable. It is as if collective memory preserves a faint outline of lost lands, echoing across cultures separated by thousands of kilometers. The legends also describe cosmic forces and cataclysms. In Tamil lore, Komari Kandam was submerged by a combination of earthquakes, floods, and shifting seas. Malay traditions emphasize storms, tsunamis, and tidal waves as the agents of destruction. Malagasy myths, meanwhile, describe the ocean swallowing land gradually, leaving only a memory in stories and songs. These recurring themes, earthquakes, floods, and rising seas, mirror the geological processes that reshape continents, lending credibility to the idea that myth and reality are intertwined. Speculatively, one can imagine that the people of these vanished lands were forced to migrate, carrying their culture, language, and technology to nearby regions. Survivors may have influenced early civilizations in India, Sri Lanka, Madagascar, and Southeast Asia. Perhaps fragments of Komari Kandam's knowledge seeded the development of navigation, agriculture, and trade in the Indian Ocean basin. In this sense, lost continents are not just memory, they are living legacies, shaping human history even after their physical disappearance. The Indian Ocean legends also highlight the emotional resonance of lost lands. Tales of drowned kingdoms, fleeing populations, and vanishing cities are often steeped in sorrow, loss, and longing. They are more than explanations for natural events. They convey the human experience of catastrophe and survival. In this, they resemble myths from other regions: Mesopotamian floods, Doggerland submerged beneath the North Sea, and Sundaland in Southeast Asia, showing a universal human response to rising seas and disappearing lands. Odd facts from modern research reinforce these narratives. Bathymetric surveys reveal submerged landforms, ancient river channels, and terraces beneath the Indian Ocean, particularly along the continental shelves south of India. These features correspond to areas described in myth as once fertile and inhabited. The match is not perfect, but it is suggestive. Legends may encode oral memory of geological reality, passed down long before written history recorded the world as it now exists. Legends also intersect with speculation about lost continents like Lemuria, a 19th century construct developed to explain lemur migration across the Indian Ocean. While Lemuria itself is considered pseudoscientific, it draws inspiration from myths like Komari Kandam, highlighting how human imagination attempts to reconstruct vanished lands. These stories blend observation, memory, and creativity, illustrating the enduring power of myth to preserve fragments of lost geographies. The Indian Ocean's myths underscore the interconnectedness of human memory and geology. Rising seas erased entire landscapes, yet survivors encoded them in stories, rituals, and oral traditions. Islands that once existed became invisible to all, but the memory of those who escaped. Over generations, these memories became myth, a combination of fact, allegory, and imagination. Yet when examined alongside geological and archaeological evidence, they reveal tantalizing hints of reality, lands that truly were, now hidden beneath waves. Speculatively, Kumari Kandam and related legends may represent a collective human awareness of global climate change, long before modern science could quantify it. Communities witnessed rising waters, receding shorelines, and submerged villages, encoding these experiences in narratives passed from elders to children. In this sense, myths functioned as both warning and record, a cultural chronicle of lost continents and the resilience of human societies in the face of environmental upheaval. Ultimately, the Indian Ocean legends are a testament to the power of storytelling to preserve history that might otherwise be lost. They remind us that oceans are not merely barriers, but archives, that waves can erase land, yet leave its memory in human consciousness, and that what seems mythic may have roots in reality. Kumari Kandam, drowned islands, and vanished kingdoms are more than stories. They are echoes of a world that existed before the seas rose, preserved in human imagination. As waves lap against modern shores and sailors traverse the Indian Ocean, one can almost sense the presence of these lost lands beneath the water. Every current, every shoal, every submerged ridge is a fragment of a vanished geography, and the legends preserve its memory. In this, mythology, geology, and human experience converge, offering a glimpse of the Indian Ocean, not as empty water, but as a palimpsest of vanished continents, civilizations, and history. The ocean remains both a mystery and a memory. Just as the sands of Mauritius conceal remnants of Mauritius, and Doggerland lies hidden beneath the North Sea, the Indian Ocean holds its own secrets. Legends of Kumari Kandam remind us that land is impermanent, that human memory is resilient, and that stories may carry truths obscured by time and tide. In listening to these tales, we reconnect with the world as it once was, a world of lost continents, sunken kingdoms, and the enduring human need to remember. Imagine standing on the edge of a volcanic caldera, the air thick with sulfur and heat, the earth trembling beneath your feet. The sky glows red as molten rock churns below, spewing ash and lava in a furious display of the planet's raw power. This is fire on a colossal scale, a reminder that the world we see today is only a temporary arrangement, constantly reshaped by geological forces beyond human control. Throughout Earth's history, catastrophic events, fire and flood have erased landscapes, reshaped continents, and even inspired myths of lost civilizations. One of the most dramatic agents of change is the supervolcano. Unlike ordinary volcanoes, which erupt periodically, supervolcanoes can unleash energy thousands of times greater than typical eruptions. When Yellowstone in North America or Toba in Indonesia erupted tens of thousands of years ago, they blanketed entire regions in ash, triggered climatic upheavals, and possibly caused mass extinctions. A single cataclysmic eruption could obliterate local ecosystems, reshape topography, and even raise or lower sea levels through climatic effects, effectively erasing regions from human memory. Meanwhile, the skies themselves have delivered destruction. Large meteors and asteroids have collided with Earth, leaving craters, altering climates, and reshaping coastlines. The impact that contributed to the demise of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago is the most famous example, but smaller strikes throughout prehistory could have wiped out entire coastal settlements, submerged islands, or even contributed to the drowning of microcontinents. Imagine a fiery object slamming into the sea, sending massive tsunamis, racing across ocean basins, consuming low-lying lands, and leaving only fragments of memory behind. Rapid sea level rise is another subtle but equally potent force. During glacial retreats, ice sheets melted at unprecedented rates, causing oceans to rise tens of meters within centuries or even decades. Entire coastal regions, fertile plains, and river deltas disappeared beneath the waves, erasing human settlements and ecosystems alike. Places like Doggerland in the North Sea, Sundaland in Southeast Asia, and the mythical Kumari Kandam in the Indian Ocean could have vanished in this way, leaving only faint traces in oral tradition, fossils, and sediment layers. Rising seas do not announce themselves. They slowly claim what was once solid ground, reshaping maps in silence. Odd facts from geology reveal the scope of these events. The Toba supereruption, around 74,000 years ago, released roughly 2,800 cubic kilometers of material, affecting climates worldwide. Evidence suggests that global temperatures dropped dramatically, causing a volcanic winter that lasted several years. For humans living at that time, vast regions would have become uninhabitable, forcing migration and survival in refuges. Entire ecosystems were decimated, and landscapes were literally rewritten. In these moments, continents and islands could disappear from living memory, their existence preserved only in myth or buried deep beneath sediment and lava. The interaction between fire and flood amplifies their impact. When volcanic islands collapse or earthquakes trigger landslides, the resulting tsunamis can be devastating. Historical and geological records suggest that coastal catastrophes may have wiped out civilizations or erased significant landmasses. These events often coincide with oral traditions of sunken cities and drowned continents, bridging the gap between geology and myth. The memory of catastrophe, passed down for generations, becomes the seed for stories like Atlantis, Kumari Kandam, and other submerged lands. Speculatively, the combination of supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and rapid sea level rise could explain why certain continents vanished almost entirely. Microcontinents like Mauritius may have been partially submerged, their fertile plains and coastal settlements lost to the ocean. Even larger landmasses, temporarily ice-free Antarctica or regions of Sundaland, could have experienced dramatic environmental shifts, forcing mass migrations and the loss of cultural memory. In this light, catastrophes are not only destructive, they are reshapers of history, erasing what was once familiar and leaving space for new civilizations to emerge. Odd facts from oceanography support this vision. Submerged plateaus, terraces, and riverbeds beneath modern seas indicate that some coastal plains were gradually inundated, while abrupt geological events accelerated the process. Tsunami deposits in India, Southeast Asia, and Madagascar suggest that waves hundreds of meters high may have swept over lands now invisible to the naked eye. Evidence of sudden soil erosion, sediment layering, and buried forests points to rapid, catastrophic changes that could wipe entire regions off the map in mere centuries or decades. Human imagination has always sought to interpret these disasters. Stories of floods, fire from the sky, and lands swallowed by the sea recur across cultures. Mesopotamian, Mesoamerican, and Indian myths all describe cataclysms that reshape the world. Could these be recollections of events triggered by supervolcanoes, meteors, or rising seas? While the details are mythologized, the consistency of themes, destruction, migration, survival suggests that humans have long recorded geological catastrophes in narrative form, preserving memory even when physical evidence is obscured. The profound lesson of fire and flood is the impermanence of land. Continents and islands that seem eternal are constantly evolving. Tectonics, volcanism, asteroid impacts, and glacial cycles are not abstract forces. They are the sculptors of geography, capable of erasing everything in their path. A single event can redraw coastlines, submerge cities, and wipe out species. These processes remind us that the Earth is dynamic, and human history is merely a brief window in a timeline defined by forces both visible and invisible. Speculatively, lost continents like Lemuria, Mu, and fragments of Sundaland may owe their disappearance to a combination of these forces. Rising seas could have slowly submerged fertile plains, while volcanic eruptions and earthquakes destabilized islands, and asteroid impacts sent waves racing across oceans. Even if the precise details remain unknown, the mechanisms are plausible, offering a bridge between myth and reality. Catastrophes, in this sense, are both natural and narrative events, shaping Earth and human memories simultaneously. Oddly, modern research confirms that such events are not relics of the past. Supervolcanoes like Yellowstone remain active, meteors continue to strike Earth, and rising seas are once again reshaping coastlines. Humanity is witnessing geological processes in real time, echoing the same forces that erased lost continents millennia ago. In this, the study of fire and flood is not merely historical. It is a reminder of the ongoing dynamism of our planet and the fragility of land we take for granted. Ultimately, fire and flood remind us that maps, myths, and memory are deeply interconnected. Lost lands are not always imaginary. They are shaped by cataclysms that leave faint traces in sediment, fossils, and cultural memory. Understanding these forces allows us to reinterpret myths of Atlantis, Kumari-Kandam, and other vanished continents, recognizing them as echoes of real geological events. In this sense, Earth's catastrophes are storytellers, narrating a history that is both violent and transformative, recorded in stone, ice, and human imagination. As smoke rises from volcanic calderas, as meteors carve paths through the sky, and as oceans reclaim coastlines, we are reminded that Earth is never still. Continents can vanish, lands can sink, and civilizations can be erased from memory. Fire and flood are not anomalies. They are the rhythms of planetary change, shaping landscapes and the stories humans tell about them. In the remnants of catastrophes lie both destruction and preservation, a paradox that continues to fascinate scientists, historians, and storytellers alike. Imagine a night sky unspoiled by city lights, a canvas of stars stretching endlessly above. The Milky Way arcs like a river of silver, constellations shimmer, and the planets move silently across the heavens. Long before telescopes or written mathematics, humans looked upward with curiosity and reverence. They observed celestial rhythms, aligned monuments with the rising and setting of stars, and encoded stories in the heavens. Some scholars now speculate that these ancient astronomers may have preserved memory of the Earth itself, including continents and lands now vanished beneath oceans. Across cultures, alignments between monuments and celestial bodies suggest a profound understanding of astronomy. In Egypt, the pyramids of Giza mirror the stars of Orion's belt. In South America, Machu Picchu and other Incan sites align with solstices and constellations. In the Pacific, Polynesian navigators read the stars to traverse thousands of kilometers of open ocean. While these alignments are often interpreted as practical or religious, a more speculative perspective asks, could some star charts and mythologies encode knowledge of geographical events, catastrophes, floods, or submerged lands? Could humans have mapped the heavens to preserve memory of the Earth? Consider the myths of celestial floods. In many cultures, stories of oceans rising, land sinking, and civilizations being swallowed by water are tied symbolically to the sky. Mesopotamian legends speak of the god's wrath flooding the earth. Hindu mythology recounts the cosmic fish, Matsya, warning humanity of an impending deluge. Indigenous Australian lore describes stars guiding survivors of drowned lands. These myths often correspond temporally with rapid sea level changes, hinting that humans may have encoded catastrophic memory in stories intertwined with the stars. Odd facts reveal the intricacy of these celestial observations. The Giza Pyramid's shafts, for example, point toward specific stars thought to represent gods, spirits, or cosmic order. Some theorists argue these alignments may have also marked geographic memory, preserving awareness of lands that had disappeared or were threatened by rising seas. Similarly, ancient megalithic sites across Europe align with lunar and solar cycles. Yet some orientations appear unusual if intended solely for ritual. Could they encode additional knowledge, perhaps a map of the heavens that doubles as a map of lost continents? In the Pacific, Polynesian navigation offers another compelling glimpse. Generations of seafarers memorized star paths, ocean swells, and wind patterns to traverse vast distances. Some researchers suggest these navigators carried oral knowledge of islands that were no longer visible, lands that had been submerged by rising seas. The connection between celestial observation and vanished geography becomes tangible. The stars served as a memory device, helping humans remember not only direction and time, but also the existence of lands that had disappeared. Speculative interpretations extend further. Ancient myths sometimes link specific stars or constellations with floods or sunken lands. Could stories of Orion, Sirius, or the Pleiades carry encoded warnings of rising oceans? Some suggest that legends of Atlantis, Lemuria, or Kumari Kandam may be preserved in stellar symbolism, transmitting knowledge of catastrophe across generations. The stars, unlike ephemeral shorelines, endure, offering a stable reference against which humans could encode the impermanence of their world. Odd facts from archaeology hint at startling possibilities. Sites such as Nabta Playa in southern Egypt, predating the pyramids by thousands of years, align with solstices and star clusters, suggesting knowledge of astronomy earlier than traditionally assumed. Some researchers speculate that these early observers may have also been aware of environmental changes: rivers drying, lakes vanishing, lands submerged by rising seas. The sky, in essence, becomes a cosmic ledger, recording terrestrial events through symbolism, alignment, and ritual. This approach reframes human history as a dialogue between earth and sky. Ancient astronomers were not merely counting days or predicting seasons. They may have been preserving collective memory of vanished continents, encoded in the constellations, myths, and ceremonial structures. The rhythms of the heavens could mirror the rhythms of the earth: rising and falling seas, cataclysmic eruptions, and the slow movement of continents over millennia. In this sense, astronomy becomes not just observation, but a form of geographical storytelling, connecting past, present, and imagination. Speculatively, one can imagine early humans witnessing dramatic environmental changes, floods, storms, and shifting coastlines, and turning to the stars to encode this knowledge. Oral traditions, tied to celestial markers, could ensure that the memory of lost lands survived millennia. For example, a submerged region like Doggerland or Sundaland could be remembered not on maps or in written records, but through narratives intertwined with the positions of stars, guiding future generations toward survival, migration, and understanding of natural cycles. Odd facts also appear in symbolic interpretation. Certain ancient artifacts, stone carvings, petroglyphs, and ceremonial objects depict floods, rivers, or sunken lands with apparent astronomical associations. Could these representations be attempts to fuse observation of the heavens with memory of terrestrial catastrophe? If so, myths of celestial floods are not purely allegorical. They are encoded historical records, waiting to be deciphered with the combined lenses of archaeology, astronomy, and geology. The emotional resonance is profound. To gaze at the night sky and imagine your ancestors encoding the memory of lands lost beneath oceans evokes a sense of continuity, resilience, and awe. The sky becomes both witness and archive, carrying stories that survive the erasure of continents, the disappearance of rivers, and the submersion of civilizations. Ancient astronomers, by linking Earth to cosmos, ensured that memory outlasted catastrophe, and that knowledge of vanished lands could persist in a form untouchable by waves or ice. Speculative connections extend even further. Some researchers point to correlations between mythical lands and specific stars, proposing that constellations served as mnemonic devices to preserve complex information about geography, climate, and catastrophe. For example, stories of a sunken kingdom tied to Orion or the Pleiades may encode orientation, migration paths, or temporal memory of sea level rise. Whether intentional or intuitive, the integration of sky and memory demonstrates the sophistication of prehistoric observation. Ultimately, the astronomers of the deep past teach us that memory can transcend physical destruction. Lost continents may vanish beneath the ocean, forests may be swallowed by glaciers, and civilizations may crumble under fire and flood, but encoded knowledge, especially when tied to the enduring heavens, has the power to survive. The stars, unchanging in the human lifespan, serve as guardians of memory, connecting us to landscapes long gone, and perhaps to human experiences now almost forgotten. As constellations wheel overhead, their silent paths evoke both wonder and speculation. Could ancient astronomers have witnessed the gradual disappearance of Sundaland, Mauritia, or Kumari Kandam and translated this knowledge into celestial narratives? Could myths of floods, submerged lands, and wandering survivors preserve fragments of these vanished continents? While the evidence remains circumstantial, the poetic possibility lingers. The stars themselves may be the last witnesses of lost lands, guiding us not only in navigation, but also in imagination. In the end, the astronomers of the deep past challenge us to rethink how knowledge is preserved. Written records, monuments, and maps may fade, but the heavens endure. They offer a bridge between myth and history, imagination and geology, human memory and the vast, shifting earth. The stars may hold secrets of vanished continents, encoded in alignment, story, and ritual, a silent, cosmic testimony to worlds lost beneath waves, ice, and time. The ocean stretches endlessly, waves rolling with a rhythm as old as the earth itself. Across its surface, small islands punctuate the vast expanse. Of long ago, the waters hid lands far larger, fertile, and thriving. When continents vanished beneath rising seas, earthquakes, or cataclysmic floods, the inhabitants did not disappear entirely. Survivors fleeing the waters, the fire, and the shifting earth became voyagers, carrying with them the knowledge, culture, and memory of worlds now lost. In their journeys, they planted the seeds of civilization, leaving traces that would shape human history for millennia. Consider Sundaland, the submerged expanse of Southeast Asia. As sea levels rose after the Ice Age, human populations were forced to migrate to higher grounds and nearby islands. These migrations carried more than their physical presence. They brought agricultural knowledge, domesticated plants, and techniques for fishing, navigation, and settlement. The surviving communities adapted to new geographies, but echoes of their former homelands persisted. Cultural memory, storytelling, and ritual encoded fragments of lost continents, passing down knowledge that would influence later civilizations in Indonesia, Malaysia, and beyond. In the Indian Ocean, legends of Kumari Kandam described catastrophic submersion, yet the Tamil diaspora preserved memory of the continent in song, oral history, and cosmology. Survivors may have traveled to Sri Lanka, India, and Madagascar, carrying not only language, but also techniques for seafaring and agriculture. By planting crops, building settlements, and navigating oceans, these humans transformed displacement into innovation, turning catastrophe into the foundation for new societies. Odd facts reinforce this view. Linguistic studies suggest that certain words, myths, and cultural practices in South and Southeast Asia may trace back to communities displaced by rising seas. Similarly, archaeological findings in Madagascar reveal early settlers who may have arrived with maritime skills, oral traditions, and agricultural practices linked to vanished lands. These migrations were not simple movements. They were vectors of civilization itself, spreading technologies and ideas across oceans in the wake of disappearing continents. Even further afield, survivors of microcontinents like Mauritia or Zealandia may have contributed to the dispersal of human knowledge. While no direct evidence of fully developed civilizations on these lands exists, geological and mythological clues suggests that humans were already capable long-distance sea travel. The loss of land forced them to innovate, navigating open seas, constructing durable vessels, and creating trade networks that would underpin later cultures. In this sense, vanished continents acted as incubators of ingenuity, their disappearance catalyzing human adaptation and advancement. Speculative yet compelling, one can imagine survivors carrying mythology, astronomy, and art from lost lands. Stories of floods, drowned cities, and vanished kingdoms became the foundation for later myths: Atlantis in the west, Kumari Kandam in the east, Mu across the Pacific. These narratives, though transformed over centuries, may have preserved kernels of truth about real places and events. Survivors encoded knowledge in ritual, myth, and observation, creating cultural continuity that endured even after the land itself had vanished beneath water or ice. Odd facts appear in material culture as well. Tools, pottery styles, and agricultural practices found in Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean islands, and even Polynesia show striking similarities despite vast distances. Some researchers argue that these commonalities may reflect shared origins on lands now lost, where early humans first developed techniques and knowledge that would later disperse. Catastrophe, in this sense, acted as a vector for cultural diffusion, forcing communities to carry ideas to new lands rather than confining them to regions now submerged. The story of Doggerland offers another vivid example. Once a fertile plain beneath the North Sea, it was home to Mesolithic communities until it was gradually drowned by rising waters. Survivors likely migrated to Britain, continental Europe, and beyond, bringing with them fishing techniques, hunting strategies, and possibly early social organization. In this way, vanished lands did not erase human progress. They redirected it, spreading knowledge to regions that would later see the rise of civilizations such as the Celts, the Norse, and other European societies. Speculation also reaches into agriculture. Crops, domesticated animals, and irrigation techniques may have originated in lost lands before being carried across seas by displaced populations. Sunken river valleys, fertile plains, and rich coastlines would have provided ideal conditions for early cultivation. When those lands disappeared, the survivors' migrations ensured that the knowledge of planting, harvesting, and sustainable management was not lost. Thus, vanished continents may have played a silent role in the evolution of global agriculture, seeding techniques that endure to this day. Navigation and maritime expertise are equally significant. The experience of surviving catastrophe, rising waters, shifting shorelines, and unpredictable weather would have sharpened skills in boat building, charting currents, and celestial navigation. Polynesian, Indian Ocean, and Southeast Asian maritime traditions, some of the most sophisticated in prehistory, may owe their origins to lessons learned on lands now beneath the waves. Survivors transformed survival into skill, skill into knowledge, and knowledge into enduring culture. Mythology and art also traveled with survivors. Tales of vanished lands, divine floods, and heroic journeys persisted as allegory and ritual. Symbols, carvings, and oral stories often preserve the essence of a lost continent: fertile plains, abundant rivers, and human ingenuity. These narratives were adaptive, allowing communities to remember their origins, maintain identity, and convey lessons about resilience, survival, and the relationship between humanity and the natural world. Oddly, even DNA may carry evidence of these migrations. Genetic studies reveal unexpected links between populations separated by vast oceans, hinting at early dispersals that align with the timing of submerged lands. While precise connections remain speculative, these findings suggest that survivors of vanished continents may have contributed to the genetic diversity of modern populations, weaving the remnants of lost worlds into the very fabric of human biology. Ultimately, the story of survivors and the seeds of civilization underscores the resilience of humanity. Catastrophe erased landscapes, But it did not erase human ingenuity. Instead, it forced adaptation, migration, and the spread of knowledge. Lost continents became laboratories of survival and innovation, their disappearance shaping human culture in subtle yet profound ways. By preserving myths, refining agriculture, mastering the seas, and transmitting knowledge across generations, survivors ensured that the memory of vanished lands endured, not as geography, but as civilization itself. As waves lap against modern shores, one can imagine the footsteps of those who fled rising waters. They carried more than possessions. They carried ideas, stories, and practices that would ripple through time. The echoes of lost continents resonate not only in myth and legend, but also in the technologies, social structures, and knowledge that underpin human society today. Each river irrigated, each crop planted, each star charted for navigation is a testament to human continuity in the face of disappearance. In the end, the vanished lands live on not beneath the waves, but in the legacy of those who survived. Sundaland, Doggerland, Kumari Kandam, and other lost continents contributed to the shaping of human history, spreading seeds of knowledge that continue to grow. Civilizations, myths, technologies, and even genetic lineages are part of this enduring legacy, reminding us that loss can be transformative and memory can outlast catastrophe. And so, as humans built new cities, charted new seas, and passed down stories of lands swallowed by water, they became custodians of vanished continents, carrying fragments of the past into a future that would never forget the lessons of survival, adaptation, and ingenuity. The survivors of lost lands were not merely witnesses, they were the bridge between disappearance and civilization, ensuring that even as continents vanished, the human story endured. In a quiet museum hall, under the soft glow of protective lights, lies an object that seems to defy time. Perhaps it is a carved stone, an intricate metal mechanism, or a fragment of pottery bearing symbols that should not exist in its context. Scholars scratch their heads. Historians debate. The public wonders if ancient humans were more advanced than we assume. These are out-of-place artifacts, objects that challenge conventional timelines, suggesting the possibility of forgotten civilizations, vanished continents, and knowledge lost beneath the waves. One famous example is the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. This bronze device, dating back over 2,000 years, is often described as an ancient analog computer, capable of predicting astronomical positions and eclipses. Its sophistication is extraordinary, far surpassing what most historians believed possible for its time. While not linked to vanished continents directly, it demonstrates that humans were capable of technical ingenuity long before commonly accepted dates, raising questions. If advanced knowledge existed here, might it have flourished in other lands now submerged? Consider the Saqqara bird, a small wooden figure found in Egypt, shaped like a bird with aerodynamic features. Some researchers speculate it represents a model of early flight, though it predates the Wright brothers by thousands of years. While mainstream archaeology interprets it symbolically, as a representation of the soul or religious iconography, the possibility remains that knowledge of flight, or at least observation of aerodynamics, was recorded in ways we do not yet fully understand. Could similar innovations have been developed in civilizations lost to the sea, their artifacts now buried beneath oceans or sands? Odd facts continue across continents. In Central and South America, artifacts such as the Quimbaya airplanes, small gold figurines resembling modern airplanes, pose perplexing questions. Mainstream scholars often categorize them as stylized animals or ritual objects, yet their precise shapes provoke speculation about the knowledge and imagination of pre-Columbian cultures. If such advanced conceptualizations existed in known civilizations, could even more sophisticated technologies have been cultivated in lands that vanished, leaving little trace? The Baghdad battery, a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod, is another enigma. Some theorists argue it functioned as a primitive galvanic cell, capable of generating electricity. Whether this interpretation is accurate remains controversial, yet its very existence challenges assumptions about ancient technological capability. If civilizations had access to energy storage or electrochemical experimentation, might lost continents submerged microlands like Lemuria or Mauritia have nurtured similar forgotten advancements? Oddly, many artifacts are not just technologically puzzling, but geographically curious. Artifacts with stylistic or material similarities appear thousands of kilometers apart, defying conventional migration patterns. For example, certain bronze or stone carvings in the Indian Ocean islands resemble designs from Southeast Asia or Madagascar. Could these be relics of a shared civilization once spread across lands that now lie underwater, whose memory survives only in isolated remnants? The idea tantalizes archaeologists and dreamers alike. Vanished continents may have been centers of culture and innovation, now hidden beneath the waves. The ocean itself guards secrets. Shipwrecks occasionally yield artifacts that challenge historical understanding. Ceramics, tools, and ornaments are recovered from areas now submerged, suggesting that early humans inhabited coastal regions later claimed by rising seas. Doggerland beneath the North Sea, Sundaland in Southeast Asia, and parts of the Indian Ocean contain layers of sediment preserving human activity, much of it inaccessible until modern sonar mapping and underwater archaeology reveal it. Each discovery is a fragment of lost civilization, a puzzle piece of worlds erased by catastrophe and time. Some artifacts also suggest a continuity of knowledge across millennia. Megalithic structures, aligned with celestial bodies, appear worldwide from Göbekli Tepe in Turkey to the stone arrangements of Nabda Playa in Egypt. While some argue for independent invention, the possibility exists that these techniques and understandings originated in older, vanished cultures. Survivors could have carried knowledge from lands lost beneath seas or glaciers, leaving hints in monuments, artifacts, and ritual objects far from the original site. Odd facts in metallurgy provide further intrigue. Some artifacts contain alloys or metalworking techniques that should have been impossible at the time, given known technology. Copper-tin alloys, advanced smelting, or intricate casting methods appear in contexts where scholars do not expect them. Could these techniques have been preserved from civilizations that thrived on continents now submerged, their innovations slowly diffused through migration, trade, or oral instruction? Each artifact challenges the linear narrative of human progress, suggesting a more complex story of knowledge lost and rediscovered. Art, too, carries mysterious echoes. Stylized carvings, symbolic inscriptions, and geometric patterns appear in multiple cultures separated by oceans and time. Could these similarities reflect shared knowledge originating from a vanished landmass, or perhaps a civilization that once bridged regions now divided by water? While mainstream explanations emphasize coincidence or convergent development, the repetition of motifs invites speculation about civilizations whose influence persists despite geological disappearance. The emotional resonance of out-of-place artifacts is compelling. Each object, whether a device, carving, or ornament, is a fragment of a forgotten story. They are whispers from vanished lands, evidence that humans not only survived cataclysms, but left traces of creativity, intelligence, and cultural memory. Even in the absence of entire continents, these artifacts suggest continuity. Human ingenuity does not vanish with land. Speculatively, some artifacts may have served as records of lost geography. Maps, etched stones, or symbolic representations could encode knowledge of lands now submerged. The Piri Reis map, for instance, shows coastlines of South America and possibly Antarctica before their official discovery, sparking debate over the transmission of ancient knowledge. Could other artifacts similarly preserve memory of microcontinents like Mauritia or sunken plains of Sundaland? These objects may be the last tangible link to civilizations erased by fire, flood, or shifting seas. Odd facts also extend to natural phenomena recorded in artifacts. Some carvings appear to depict astronomical events, meteor showers, eclipses, or tidal waves, suggesting that ancient observers recorded cataclysms in symbolic form. If true, such artifacts serve as dual records of both environmental change and human experience, potentially offering indirect evidence of vanished lands and the disasters that erased them. Ultimately, the puzzle of out-of-place artifacts invites both humility and imagination. They remind us that human history is not neatly linear. Knowledge, skill, and culture are not confined to recognized civilizations. They may have flourished in lands now gone, only to survive as isolated fragments in museums, buried sediment, or oral tradition. Each artifact is a silent testament to human resilience and the persistence of memory, offering tantalizing clues about the continents and civilizations we no longer see. As we examine these objects under modern lights, we glimpse the edges of forgotten worlds. The Antikythera mechanism, the Saqqara bird, the Baghdad battery, and countless other enigmatic artifacts hint at a broader, deeper history, one that may include vanished continents, sunken cities, and knowledge that defies conventional timelines. They challenge us to consider the possibility that what we call history is only part of the story, and that lost lands continue to speak through the artifacts they left behind. In the end, the puzzle of out-of-place artifacts is not just about technology or chronology. It is about memory, continuity, and imagination. Each object is a bridge across time, a whisper from civilizations lost to rising seas, cataclysms, or the inexorable march of the earth. They remind us that knowledge can survive destruction, that creativity endures even when continents vanish, and that humanity's story is written not only in history books, but in the enduring artifacts of worlds we may never fully recover. Beneath the surface of our skin, in every cell, lies a record more enduring than paper, stone, or memory. DNA, the molecular blueprint of life, carries within it the story of humanity, our origins, migrations, and adaptations. But beyond personal ancestry, our genes also whisper tales of vanished lands, hinting at continents that once existed, islands that are now submerged, and peoples whose footprints have been erased by rising seas and shifting earth. Modern genetic studies reveal unexpected connections across vast distances. Populations separated by oceans sometimes share surprisingly similar markers, suggesting ancient migrations that defy conventional explanations. For instance, certain communities in Madagascar show genetic links to Southeast Asia, India, and Africa, reflecting complex seafaring movements thousands of years ago. Could these patterns also preserve traces of lost homelands, lands that guided early humans across oceans before they disappeared beneath the waves? Odd facts emerge when comparing ancient DNA samples. Human remains found in Sundaland and Southeast Asia reveal genetic diversity that points to long-settled populations, capable of thriving in regions now submerged. As sea levels rose, survivors were forced to migrate, carrying not only their genes, but their knowledge, culture, and traditions to new regions. These migrations are etched in the human genome, a silent record of continents erased, yet lives that endured. Speculative interpretations suggest that microcontinents such as Mauritius, Doggerland, and fragments of Zealandia may have supported small human populations whose descendants spread far and wide. Genetic markers, passed down over millennia, could encode traces of vanished homelands, revealing connections between peoples now separated by thousands of kilometers of ocean. DNA, in this sense, acts as a bridge across geography and time, linking us to lands we can no longer see. Consider the patterns of haplogroups, the lineages that trace maternal and paternal ancestry. Certain haplogroups are surprisingly widespread, appearing on multiple continents with no obvious overland connection. These patterns raise questions. Did ancient humans travel by sea from lands that no longer exist? Did rising waters and climate change drive migrations that left genetic footprints we still carry today? Each strand of DNA holds a subtle hint, suggesting a world of movement and adaptation beyond the reach of written history. Odd facts from ancient genomes reinforce this. Genetic evidence from early Australians indicates interactions with populations from Southeast Asia, pointing to sea crossings and exchanges that may predate known migrations. Similarly, South Pacific populations carry genes connecting them to distant lands, hinting at voyages across waters that now conceal lost islands or submerged continental fragments. In this way, DNA preserves a memory of geography itself, echoing places and routes long vanished. Speculation extends even to human adaptation. Certain genetic traits may have evolved in response to specific environmental conditions, fertile plains, river valleys, or tropical coasts that no longer exist. Could the distribution of these traits provide clues about vanished lands and the civilizations that once thrived there? For example, adaptations for diet, disease resistance, or climate resilience may reflect ancestral homelands that were lost to catastrophe or rising seas, leaving their imprint only in the human genome. The story of migration preserved in DNA also resonates with myths of survivors and dispersed peoples. Legends of sunken continents, Atlantis, Lemuria, Kumari Kandam may find subtle echoes in genetic evidence, suggesting movement of populations forced from disappearing lands. Each genetic signature is a whisper from the past, linking living humans to regions and events erased from maps and memory. Oddly, the memory carried in DNA is not limited to humans. Crops, domesticated animals, and even certain microorganisms also carry traces of migration and environmental adaptation. The spread of rice, for example, may reflect the movement of early human populations fleeing rising seas, while livestock patterns hint at lost grazing lands. These intertwined genetic stories form a mosaic of vanished landscapes, revealing the hidden imprint of continents submerged beneath oceans. Speculatively, one can imagine early humans navigating across Sundaland, Doggerland, or Mauritia, carrying seeds, livestock, and cultural knowledge alongside their genetic legacy. As these lands disappeared beneath the waves, survivors dispersed, leaving genetic trails that endure to the present day. In this sense, DNA is not just biology. It is history, geography, and memory encoded in molecules, silently preserving the existence of continents that no longer meet the eye. Ultimately, the long memory of DNA reminds us of human resilience. Even when land disappears, civilizations are dispersed, and written records are lost, the genetic thread persists, connecting us to vanished worlds. Each migration, adaptation, and survival story is embedded in our genome, a living testament to lands that shaped our ancestors and through them continue to shape us. As researchers decode genomes from ancient and modern populations, they uncover layers of history that challenge conventional narratives. Lost continents, microlands, and vanished islands may have played a pivotal role in shaping human diversity, movement, and innovation. The DNA thus becomes a bridge between myth, archaeology, and geography, illuminating the hidden paths of our species across a planet forever in motion. In the end, the story written in our genes is profound. Continents may vanish, civilizations may crumble, and myths may obscure the truth, but the legacy of lost lands persists in the strands of DNA carried by every living human. The seas may have swallowed forests, plains, and cities, yet our genes endure, whispering of vanished homelands, migrations, and the unbroken continuity of life. Picture a coastline at dawn. The sky is soft with pastel hues, and waves lap quietly against the shore. Yet beneath the calm surface lies the relentless power of the ocean, capable of erasing forests, plains, and even cities over centuries. Land, which humans often perceive as permanent, is in truth transient, shaped and reclaimed by water, ice, and time. As tides rise and continents shift, the Earth demonstrates that permanence is an illusion, an idea that resonates deeply when contemplating vanished lands and submerged civilizations. Across history, coastlines have advanced and retreated with each glacial epoch. At the end of the last ice age, melting glaciers raised sea levels by more than 120 meters, inundating river valleys, lowlands, and vast plains. Sundaland in Southeast Asia, Doggerland beneath the North Sea, and portions of the Indian Ocean islands were swallowed, vanishing beneath a rising tide that left only memory behind. These losses were not sudden for geologists, yet for humans living there, the flood must have felt immediate, unstoppable, and catastrophic. Odd facts from archaeology illuminate the human experience of vanishing land. Submerged tools, pottery shards, and remnants of structures have been found in areas now underwater, suggesting that early civilizations were forced to abandon fertile plains and coastal settlements. The traces speak to communities uprooted by rising seas, leaving only faint echoes in stories, myths, and the fragments of material culture that survive beneath layers of sediment. In some cases, cities themselves have been claimed by water. Ancient ports, docks, and settlements along coastlines once thriving are now underwater. The Mediterranean holds submerged towns, and off the coasts of India, Pakistan, and Japan, archaeologists have discovered ruins beneath waves, hinting at civilizations adapted to life along now lost shores. Each discovery evokes a haunting sense of transience. The land-human shape is ultimately at the mercy of larger forces. The ocean's reclaiming is not limited to gradual flooding. Tsunamis, storm surges, and tectonic activity have accelerated the disappearance of land. In a single catastrophic event, entire villages or regions could vanish, leaving only stories and geological traces behind. This reality underscores the fragility of human settlements and the impermanence of landscapes that often seem eternal. It also reminds us of the forces that may have erased continents like Lemuria or Mu, transforming once inhabited lands into underwater mysteries. Oddly, even seemingly permanent features, mountains, plateaus, and islands, are subject to slow erosion and sinking. Zealandia, nearly submerged beneath New Zealand, demonstrates how geological forces can gradually reclaim land over millions of years. Similarly, the Kerguelen Plateau and other submerged regions testify that continental disappearance is not myth, a natural consequence of tectonics and sea level change. Human memory, legend, and artifact are often all that remain to testify to these lost landscapes. Speculation and poetry intertwine when considering how the ocean remembers. Water preserves as much as it erases. Submerged riverbeds, sediment layers, and marine fossils record the existence of vanished lands. The sea is both destroyer and archivist, swallowing forests and cities, yet encoding their memory beneath its surface, waiting for explorers, sonar, or geological analysis to uncover traces of a world long vanished. Stories of vanished civilizations illustrate human confrontation with water's power. In Tamil, Malay, and indigenous Australian traditions, floods and disappearing lands are central to mythology. These narratives may preserve actual memory of rising seas, carrying lessons of migration, adaptation, and survival. Even Plato's Atlantis can be seen through this lens, a tale of human hubris and the ocean is inexorable reclamation of land. Water is the ultimate historian, chronicling both natural and human history in tides and sediments. Odd facts from modern science provide perspective. Satellite imagery and sonar mapping reveal submerged landscapes that were once habitable. River channels, valleys, and hilltops, now below sea level, suggest that human populations thrived where the ocean now rules. In the North Sea, sonar scans have reconstructed Doggerland, revealing its rivers, forests, and possible settlements. The ocean's reclaiming is both literal and symbolic. It removes what we know, yet leaves clues to piece together the past. The poetic dimension is profound. Waves lap against coasts as they have for millennia, indifferent to human constructs, while tides whisper of lands long submerged. Cities built on lowlands are reminders of impermanence, while natural events, storms, hurricanes, tsunamis demonstrate the suddenness with which the Earth can alter the map. The vanished continents, once imagined or real, serve as a meditation on the fragility of all human endeavor in the face of geological time. Speculatively, one can imagine early humans witnessing the slow disappearance of Sundaland or Doggerland. Entire landscapes gradually swallowed, forcing migration, adaptation, and the transmission of culture and knowledge to new regions. Each wave that claimed a village, forest, or plain became a chapter in a larger story of survival and innovation. The ocean's reclamation was not mere destruction. It was a shaping force that guided human evolution, migration, and civilization. Ultimately, the ocean teaches humility. The lands we inhabit, the cities we build, and even continents themselves are subject to forces far older and greater than human lifetimes. To contemplate vanished continents like Lemuria, Mu, or submerged plains beneath the North Sea is to recognize the impermanence of the familiar. Memory, myth, and archaeology are the fragile instruments through which humans preserve what has taken. As waves shimmer beneath the morning sun, one can imagine the vast plains of Doggerland, Sundaland, and Mauritia now hidden beneath quiet seas. Forests, rivers, and settlements lie in silence, their stories encoded in sediments and myths. The ocean has reclaimed its own, yet in doing so, it reminds us that land is temporary, memory is enduring, and the earth is always in motion. In the end, when the ocean reclaims, is more than a reflection on geography. It is a meditation on impermanence, resilience, and human imagination. Lands may vanish, civilizations may be submerged, and continents may disappear beneath time and tide, but the memory of these lost worlds survives. Whether through archaeology, myth, genetics, or poetic speculation, the story of vanishing land continues to echo across generations. The ocean, relentless and eternal, reclaims what it will, but in doing so, preserves the enduring legacy of human history. The night sky stretches above the sea, a canvas of stars reflected in the restless waters below. The wind whispers through empty shores, carrying the memory of places that no longer exist. Lands that once teemed with forests, rivers, and human life are now silent beneath waves, leaving only hints, artifacts, myths, and geological traces of their former existence. These are the continents beneath our dreams, not merely vanished geography, but echoes of imagination, memory, and curiosity that refuse to be silenced. From Lemuria in the Indian Ocean to Mu across the Pacific, from Sundaland's sunken plains to Doggerland beneath the North Sea, human minds have long pondered the possibility of lost lands. Some see them as scientific curiosities, remnants of plate tectonics and geological shifts. Others see them as the foundation of myth, spiritual memory, or collective imagination. And yet, even in uncertainty, the fascination endures. Why does humanity feel compelled to search for what may never be recovered? Consider the Thales of Atlantis, described by Plato millennia ago. Allegorical, perhaps, or rooted in a distant cataclysm, Atlantis sparks the imagination because it represents both possibility and loss. Similarly, myths of Kumari Kandam, Mu, and lost Pacific islands speak not just of vanished lands, but of human resilience, memory, and longing. These stories endure because they are not merely about geography. They are about our relationship to the unknown, the disappearing, and the irretrievably lost. Odd facts from archaeology and geology suggest that some of these myths may not be purely imaginative. Submerged plains, fossilized forests beneath the ocean, and ancient riverbeds testify to landscapes that were once real, habitable, and thriving. Sundaland, Zealandia, Mauritia all bear evidence that human populations lived, adapted, and migrated before their homelands vanished. The line between myth and memory blurs when geology whispers of what was, challenging us to imagine not only what existed, but how humans experienced their loss. Speculative theories deepen the allure. Could these vanished continents have been incubators of early civilization, fostering technologies, agricultural techniques, and navigation skills that later spread across surviving lands? Could survivors have carried stories, stars charts, and cultural memory to new territories, shaping the myths and knowledge of societies that came millennia later? The ocean may have reclaimed the land, but it cannot erase the echoes left in human imagination, culture, and DNA. The poetic resonance is striking. Even now, explorers scan the ocean floor with sonar, discovering hills, valleys, and remnants of rivers beneath thousands of meters of water. Each new discovery is a reminder that the Earth is alive and mutable, that the landscapes we take for granted are temporary, and that history is layered beneath both earth and sea. Lost continents are, in this sense, both scientific reality and imaginative possibility, a duality that keeps them alive in the collective consciousness. Odd facts add to the mystery. Maps like the Piri Reis chart, coastlines centuries before European discovery, possibly preserving memory of lands now submerged. Out-of-place artifacts, unusual metallurgical techniques, and enigmatic symbols hint at civilizations whose traces may have been washed away by time and tide, yet whose ingenuity endures in the fragments we recover. Each discovery rekindles curiosity, suggesting that the continents beneath our dreams were not empty spaces, but cradles of human history waiting to be rediscovered. Even DNA tells a story. Genetic evidence links populations separated by vast oceans, hinting at migration patterns that may trace back to vanished lands. Every strand of human ancestry carries echoes of sunken plains, drowned river valleys, and islands that shaped early human migration. In this way, lost continents persist not only in myth or geology, but in the very biology of people living today. They are present in memory, imagination, and inherited legacy, a reminder that disappearance is not absolute. Speculation reaches further still. Some theorists suggest that ancient astronomy, myths of celestial floods, and megalithic structures worldwide may preserve indirect knowledge of lands now beneath the sea. Stars, tides, and geological cataclysms may have been recorded in stories, rituals, and architecture, encoding a map of vanished continents in human culture itself. Even without physical remnants, the influence of these lost lands may ripple through civilizations, guiding settlement patterns, agriculture, and navigation for generations. The emotional resonance is profound. Lost continents evoke a mixture of wonder, melancholy, and curiosity. They remind us of the impermanence of our world, the fragility of civilization, and the power of nature to reclaim what humans assume is eternal. At the same time, they affirm human resilience. Survivors adapt, knowledge is carried forward, myths preserve memory, and imagination reconstructs worlds lost to the tides. The continents beneath our dreams exist in the space between loss and memory, fact and story, reality and imagination. Odd facts further blur the line between myth and possibility. In Madagascar, zircon crystals suggest the existence of a vanished microcontinent, Mauritius. In the Indian Ocean, legends tell of submerged lands swallowed by the sea. Across the Pacific, Mu captures imaginations as a continent lost to cataclysm. Each instance blends history, science, and myth, illustrating that the continents beneath our dreams are simultaneously real, imagined, and remembered, challenging us to reconsider what we define as history. Ultimately, these lost lands invite reflection. They remind us that the Earth is mutable, that humans are resilient, and that memory, whether encoded in DNA myth or artifact, can transcend catastrophe. They encourage us to contemplate the unknown, to embrace curiosity, and to honor the fragments of civilization preserved through time. In the imagination of humanity, Continents never truly vanish. They live on in stories, in exploration, and in the relentless quest to understand the world beneath the waves. The continents beneath our dreams are, at their core, a meditation on impermanence and possibility. They are vanished yet present, lost yet remembered, real yet imagined. They challenge us to see history not as a static record, but as a living tapestry woven from fact, myth, and speculation. And in contemplating them, we confront our own place within the vast, shifting earth and the enduring human desire to map, remember, and understand what has been taken by time and tide. As night falls and the stars reflect upon the ocean, one can imagine the lands that once existed, forests teeming with life, rivers winding through fertile plains, and human communities thriving in harmony with their environment. These continents, though submerged, persist in memory and imagination, inspiring curiosity, wonder, and a longing to explore. What else might lie hidden beneath the waves? What civilizations, knowledge, and landscapes await discovery in the depths? These questions remain unanswered, echoing across time like the soft roar of the sea itself. And so, the continents beneath our dreams endure, not in textbooks, not in sight, but in imagination. They remind us that loss does not erase legacy, that disappearance can spark curiosity, and that the human mind is capable of preserving memory, even when the land itself vanishes. In this interplay of reality and wonder, lost continents continue to live beneath the waves and within the human spirit, inviting us to explore, imagine, and remember.